The suitcase sat by the door like a final goodbye. Ryan Carter stared at it, his chest tightening as footsteps echoed down the marble staircase behind him. For 2 years, he'd lived in the guest house of billionaire Victoria Hale's estate, carefully maintaining the distance between tenant and landlord, between blue-collar single father and untouchable CEO. But tonight, after returning from a date with another woman, Victoria had shattered that distance with 5 devastating words. She doesn't love you like I do. Now she was leaving. And Ryan finally understood what he'd been running from all along. Before we begin, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's dive in. The mansion's security lights flickered on at 11:47 p.m., triggered by Ryan's truck rolling through the iron gates. He'd learned to time his arrivals during his first week here, late enough that Victoria would be asleep in the main house, early enough that his daughter Emma wouldn't wake up worried. 2 years of this careful choreography, and he still hadn't gotten used to the sheer size of the place. The Hale estate sprawled across 12 acres of Portland's West Hills like something out of a movie Ryan would never watch. The main house, Victoria called it the primary residence, with the kind of casual detachment only billionaires could manage, rose 4 stories of glass and steel and old money. His guest house sat a quarter-mile down the winding driveway, modest by comparison but still larger than any place Ryan had ever imagined living. He parked beside the fountain that probably cost more than his truck, his entire truck, and killed the engine. The date with Vanessa had been fine, pleasant. She was sophisticated, funny, exactly the kind of woman his buddy Marcus insisted he needed to meet. They talked about her work in pharmaceutical sales, his construction projects, the Portland restaurant scene. Normal stuff. Easy stuff. So why did his chest feel like it was full of concrete? Dad? Emma's voice crackled through his phone. You home? Just pulled in, sweetheart. You okay? Yeah. Victoria brought over pasta earlier, like the fancy kind with the cheese that smells weird but tastes good. Ryan closed his eyes. Of course she had. Did you thank her? Duh! I'm not a barbarian. Emma's 13-year-old indignation came through clearly. She stayed and helped me with my algebra homework too. Did you know she's like insanely good at math? She explained derivatives better than Mr. Patterson ever has. Derivatives aren't in 8th grade algebra, Em. I know, but I asked about them and she just knew. It's weird having a billionaire genius as a neighbor, Dad. Like, what's she even doing here? Ryan had wondered the same thing about 100 times. Victoria Hale could live anywhere. New York penthouses, California beach estates, European villas. Instead, she lived alone in this massive Portland mansion, working 18-hour days building her real estate empire, while the house gathered silence around her like dust. She lives here because she owns the place, Ryan said, grabbing his keys. Now get some sleep. School tomorrow. Was the date good? Marcus said she's a doctor or something. Pharmacist, whatever. Is she nice? She's nice. We're not having this conversation at midnight. You sound sad. Ryan stopped halfway out of the truck. I'm not sad, baby. I'm tired. Those are different things, Dad. Sometimes his daughter was too smart for her own good. Good night, Emma. Night. Love you. The call ended before he could respond. Ryan sat in the dark truck for another minute, watching the main house. Most of the windows were dark, but the kitchen light still glowed warm and golden through the enormous glass panels. Victoria was probably working. She was always working. The woman ran a billion-dollar real estate development company from that kitchen table more effectively than most CEOs ran their operations from corner offices. He shouldn't go up there. It was late. She was working. They had boundaries. Except Victoria had made Emma dinner. Again. That was the 4th time this month, and it was only the 18th. She'd also fixed Emma's bike chain last week when Ryan was stuck late at a job site, had somehow obtained tickets to that sold-out concert Emma wanted to see, and had casually mentioned she knew a tutor if Emma ever needed help with school. For a woman who claimed she didn't know anything about kids, Victoria sure was good at taking care of his. Ryan climbed out of the truck. The night air carried that particular Portland dampness that wasn't quite rain, but wasn't quite not rain either. The pathway to the main house was lit by those low solar lights that probably cost $200 each. Winding through gardens Victoria employed a full staff to maintain, despite barely spending time outside. The kitchen door was unlocked. It was always unlocked, at least when Ryan was out. He'd argued with her about it once. The security risk, the common sense, all of it. Victoria had just looked at him with those sharp green eyes and said, "The alarm system costs more than your truck, Ryan, and you have a key anyway. What difference does it make?" He dropped it. You didn't win arguments with Victoria Hale, not about security systems or business deals or probably anything else. The woman had built her empire by being 3 steps ahead of everyone around her and twice as stubborn as any man who'd ever tried to intimidate her. But she left the door unlocked when he was out. The kitchen was warm, smelling like garlic and that expensive cheese Emma had mentioned. Victoria sat at the far end of the massive marble island, laptop open, reading glasses perched on her nose. She wore one of those cashmere sweaters that probably cost a month's rent, and her dark hair was pulled back in a messy knot that somehow looked elegant anyway. She glanced up when he entered, and something flickered across her face too quickly for him to name. "Good date?" Her voice was carefully neutral. "It was fine." Ryan closed the door behind him. "Emma said you brought dinner." "I made too much." Victoria turned back to her laptop, typing something with quick, decisive keystrokes. Seemed wasteful to throw it out. "You made too much pasta for one person? Victoria, you live alone. How do you accidentally make enough pasta for 3 people?" Her fingers paused on the keyboard. "I miscalculated." "You have a master's degree in economics from Stanford. You don't miscalculate portions." "Apparently I do." She still wasn't looking at him. "Was she nice? Vanessa?" Ryan moved to the coffee maker, the ridiculous Italian thing that probably required a manual thicker than his truck's, and started a cup. He'd learned how to use it around month 3 of living here, mainly because Victoria kept forgetting to eat, and someone needed to make her coffee at reasonable hours. "She was nice," he said finally. "Smart, funny, works in pharmaceutical sales, travels a lot for conventions and stuff." "Sounds interesting." It was interesting. "Are you seeing her again?" Ryan watched the coffee drip into the cup, dark and steady. "I don't know." Victoria's typing had stopped entirely now, but she still wasn't looking at him. The silence stretched out between them, heavy with something neither of them seemed willing to name. This was how it had been for 2 years. Careful conversations, polite distance, both of them pretending they didn't notice the way the air changed when they were in the same room. "Emma said you helped with her homework," Ryan said. "She asked about derivatives." I explained them. "Derivatives aren't in 8th grade." "She's curious. That's good." Victoria finally closed the laptop, removing her glasses with deliberate care. "She's exceptionally bright, Ryan. You know that, right? She should be in accelerated programs, maybe looking at early college courses. She's 13, which is exactly when these opportunities matter most. I could make some calls, get her into..." "Victoria." Ryan turned to face her properly. "I appreciate everything you do for Emma. I really do. But she doesn't need early college courses or special programs. She needs to be a kid." Something shifted in Victoria's expression, a crack in the usual armor. "I'm not trying to overstep." "I know. I just..." She stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "She reminds me of myself at that age. Curious, smart, stuck in systems that move too slowly for the way her brain works. I don't want her to waste years being bored when she could be challenged." "Is that what happened to you?" Victoria's laugh was short and humorless. "I graduated high school at 16, finished my bachelor's at 19, had my master's at 21. I built my first development at 23, and my first billion-dollar property at 27. So yes, Ryan, I was bored, and I don't want that for Emma." The coffee maker beeped. Ryan poured the cup, then made a second one without asking. He slid it across the marble island to Victoria, who accepted it with a small nod that might have been gratitude or surrender. "She also needs stability," Ryan said quietly. "Her mom left when she was 4. I've dragged her through 6 different apartments in 9 years because construction work doesn't exactly come with a pension plan. This," he gestured vaguely at the estate around them, "is the first place that's ever felt permanent. I'm not rushing her into being an adult." Victoria wrapped both hands around the coffee cup, staring into it like it might contain answers. "You're a good father." "I'm trying." Most men wouldn't try half as hard. There was something beneath her words, some old wound Ryan had learned not to poke at. Victoria never talked about her past. Not really. He knew the public story. youngest daughter of a failed real estate developer who'd drunk himself into an early grave, leaving 22-year-old Victoria with nothing but debt and a tarnished family name. She'd rebuilt everything from scratch, ruthlessly and alone, becoming the kind of businesswoman other billionaires respected and feared in equal measure. But the private story? The one that explained why a 30-year-old billionaire lived alone in a 12-acre estate without friends, family, or anyone who seemed to know her beyond business meetings? That story, Victoria kept locked down tighter than her offshore accounts. "How was the rest of your evening?" Ryan asked, steering them back to safer ground. "Conference calls with Tokyo, emails from the Singapore team, preliminary designs for the waterfront project." Victoria sipped her coffee. "Standard Tuesday." "It's 11:30 at night." "Yes, well, Tokyo doesn't care about Portland time zones." "When's the last time you took a day off?" "I'll take a day off when the projects stop requiring my attention." "Victoria, don't." She set the cup down with a sharp click against marble. "You work 60-hour weeks in construction. You don't get to lecture me about work-life balance." "I work 60-hour weeks because I'm hourly, and I have a kid to feed. You work 60-hour weeks because you won't stop, even though you could retire tomorrow and live comfortably for 10 lifetimes. Some of us don't have the luxury of comfortable retirement. You literally have $1 billion. Money doesn't mean safety, Ryan. It just means you have more to lose." The words came out harder than she'd probably intended, sharp enough to cut through the warm kitchen air. Victoria's jaw tightened, and she looked away, staring out the massive windows toward the dark gardens beyond. Ryan knew better than to push. This was the wall she always hit, the place where vulnerability might have crept in if she'd let it, but Victoria Hale didn't do vulnerability. She did billion-dollar deals and 18-hour workdays and carefully maintained distance from anyone who might get close enough to matter. Except she'd made Emma dinner. Again. And she'd asked about his date. And she always left the kitchen door unlocked when he was out late. "Thank you," Ryan said quietly, "for taking care of Emma tonight." Victoria's shoulders relaxed slightly. "She's easy to take care of. She actually listens when you explain things, doesn't assume she knows everything already." A pause. "Unlike certain construction workers I could name." Ryan smiled despite himself. "I listen. You argue. Because you're usually wrong. I'm never wrong. You were wrong about the support beam placement in the North Guest Cottage. That was a difference of aesthetic opinion, not structural integrity. You wanted to remove a load-bearing wall, Victoria. That's not aesthetics, that's physics. And you were dramatically overcautious about the risk assessment. The risk assessment that prevented the entire second floor from collapsing? Yeah, really overcautious of me." Victoria's mouth twitched in what might have been almost a smile. This was familiar territory. The banter, the arguments about structural engineering versus architectural vision, the way they'd somehow turned the renovation of the estate's various buildings into a partnership neither of them had planned. Ryan had started as just the tenant, a single father desperate enough for stable housing that he'd answered Victoria's oddly specific Craigslist ad. Guest house for rent, must be self-sufficient, respectful of privacy, and capable of basic property maintenance. References required, no drama. The rent had been absurdly cheap for what he was getting. A 3-bedroom guest house with actual yard space for Emma, utilities included, on one of the most exclusive estates in Portland. Ryan had shown up to the interview expecting a scam or a creep or both. Instead, he'd found Victoria Hale, 30 years old, beautiful in that intimidating way rich people often were, and clearly uncomfortable with the entire concept of interviewing potential tenants. She'd asked him exactly 4 questions. Did he have stable employment? Did he have references? Could he fix basic things? And did he understand what respect for privacy meant? Ryan had answered honestly, yes, 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 and absolutely. Victoria had stared at him for a long moment, those sharp green eyes evaluating something he couldn't name. Then she'd said, "The guest house is yours. Rent is due on the 1st. Don't throw parties, don't bring drama, and don't bother me unless something is actively on fire." That had been 2 years ago. Somewhere between then and now, they'd become something that didn't quite fit the definition of landlord and tenant, employer and employee, or even friends. Ryan fixed things around the property without being asked. Broken irrigation systems, faulty electrical work, that perpetual issue with the 3rd-floor bathroom in the main house. Victoria paid him for the work at rates that were definitely above market value. then pretended not to notice when he used the estate's workshop to build Emma's birthday present or took scrap materials for school projects. They had dinner together sometimes, always casual, always unplanned. Victoria would claim she'd made too much food again. Ryan would claim he was just being polite by accepting. Emma would roll her eyes at both of them and set 3 places at the table like it was the most natural thing in the world. And slowly, so slowly, neither of them seemed willing to acknowledge it. The massive estate had started feeling less like a workplace and more like Ryan cut the thought off. That wasn't what this was. Victoria had made her boundaries crystal clear from day one. No drama meant no complications, and catching feelings for your billionaire landlord definitely qualified as complications. "You should go on a second date," Victoria said suddenly, still staring out the window. "With Vanessa." Ryan's chest tightened again, that same concrete feeling from the truck. "Maybe. She sounds perfect for you. Stable career, intelligent, probably doesn't live in a construction zone." "My life isn't a construction zone." "You have drywall dust in your hair right now." Ryan ran a hand through his hair, and yeah, there was definitely dust. "Job ran late. We're finishing the interior on that commercial renovation downtown." "The one with the incompetent project manager who keeps changing the specifications?" "That's the one." "You should ask for a raise." "I'm not going to ask for a raise, Victoria." "Why not?" "You do the work of 3 people, and from what you've told me, half the project would have collapsed by now without your oversight." "Because that's not how construction works. You don't just demand more money because you think you deserve it." Victoria finally turned to look at him, one eyebrow raised. "That's exactly how everything works, Ryan. You provide value, you get compensated accordingly. It's basic economics." "It's not basic economics when your boss can replace you with someone cheaper in about 30 seconds. Then your boss is an idiot who doesn't recognize talent when he sees it." "My boss is a pragmatist who runs a business on thin margins. Not everyone operates with billion-dollar safety nets." "No, most people operate with common sense and self-advocacy, which you seem to lack." "I have plenty of common sense. You're working 60-hour weeks for a man who doesn't appreciate you, living in my guest house because you can't afford anything else in this city, and you just spent your evening on a date with a woman you clearly don't have feelings for instead of—" Victoria stopped abruptly, her expression shuddering closed. "Never mind." "Instead of what?" "Nothing. Forget it." "Victoria, you should go." She stood, gathering her laptop and coffee cup with sharp, decisive movements. "It's late. I have calls at 6. "You always have calls at 6. "Exactly. So I need to sleep." She moved toward the hallway, dismissing him without actually saying the words. Ryan should have left, should have taken the out she was offering, gone back to the guest house, pretended this conversation hadn't veered somewhere dangerous and undefined. Instead, he said, "Instead of what, Victoria?" She stopped in the doorway, her back to him. For a long moment, she didn't move, didn't speak. The house settled around them with small creaks and sighs, the sound of 12 acres of real estate holding its breath. "Instead of wasting time on someone who doesn't see you," Victoria said quietly. Then she was gone, footsteps echoing up the marble staircase toward the private wing Ryan had never been invited to enter. He stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the smell of expensive coffee and that garlic pasta she'd made for his daughter, and felt something fundamental shift in his chest. Ryan didn't sleep. He tried. He went back to the guest house, checked on Emma, asleep with her math textbook still open beside her, the one Victoria had probably helped her work through, and climbed into bed with every intention of forgetting the entire conversation. But Victoria's words played on repeat. "Someone who doesn't see you." What the hell did that mean? Vanessa had been perfectly nice, attentive, interested, asking all the right questions about his work and his daughter. She'd laughed at his jokes, suggested a second date before they'd even finished the first, and kissed him goodbye with the kind of confidence that made it clear she knew exactly what she wanted. So what if Ryan hadn't felt that spark everyone talked about? So what if he'd spent half the dinner wondering what Victoria was doing, whether she'd eaten anything, if she was working herself into exhaustion again? That didn't mean anything except that he'd gotten too comfortable in the weird little bubble they'd created over the past 2 years. He needed to get over it. Victoria was his landlord, his employer for the odd jobs around the estate, someone who occasionally made his daughter dinner when she happened to cook too much, which was definitely a coincidence and not a pattern. Except it was a pattern. It had been a pattern for months now, maybe longer. The dinners that appeared when Ryan worked late, the homework help, the concert tickets, the way Victoria always seemed to know when Emma needed something before Ryan even realized it himself, the way she asked about his dates. Ryan rolled over, staring at the ceiling. Through the window, he could see the main house in the distance, most of it dark now except for one light on the third floor. Victoria's bedroom, probably. She was probably still working because that woman didn't know how to stop. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. How'd it go with the doctor? Pharmacist. And it was fine, just fine? Bro, she's a catch, I know. So what's the problem? Ryan stared at the message for a long time before typing. No problem. Going to see her again. Hell yeah. Told you you just needed to get back out there. Yeah. Thanks for setting it up. He put the phone down and closed his eyes, ignoring the way his chest still felt wrong, like he'd made a promise he didn't want to keep. The next morning, Ryan woke to the smell of coffee. Not the cheap stuff he kept in the guest house kitchen, but the good Italian roast Victoria used in that ridiculous machine. He stumbled downstairs to find a thermos sitting on his porch with a note in her precise handwriting. You looked tired last night. V. Emma was already awake, eating cereal at the kitchen counter. Victoria dropped that off like an hour ago. She said you'd need it for work. It's 6:30 in the morning. She's always up early. I saw her running the property when I got up. Emma crunched her cereal thoughtfully. Do you think she ever sleeps? Like, actually sleeps? Or does she just work all the time? Everyone sleeps, Em. Yeah, but normal amounts? Because I've never seen her look tired. She always looks like she walked out of a magazine or something. Ryan poured coffee from the thermos into his travel mug, trying not to think about how Victoria had known he'd be exhausted this morning, had known he'd need the good coffee to make it through the day. She works too hard. That's different from not sleeping. You work too hard too. That's different. How? Because I have to. She doesn't. Emma gave him that look, the one that said she was 13 going on 30 and saw right through his bullshit. Maybe she has different reasons. What's that supposed to mean? I don't know. She just seems... Emma trailed off, searching for words. Lonely, I guess. Like, she has this huge house and all this money, but she's always by herself. Doesn't that seem sad? Ryan thought about Victoria last night, sitting alone in that enormous kitchen, working at midnight because Tokyo didn't care about time zones, about how she'd asked if he was seeing Vanessa again, her voice carefully neutral, like the answer didn't matter, about how she'd said, someone who doesn't see you, and then disappeared before he could ask what she meant. Yeah, he said quietly. It does seem sad. The workday was brutal. The project manager had indeed changed the specifications again, which meant Ryan spent 8 hours redoing electrical rough-ins that had been perfectly fine the day before. His crew was pissed, the timeline was screwed, and by the time 5 o'clock rolled around, Ryan's back was screaming and his patience was gone. Marcus caught him in the parking lot. Hey, so Vanessa texted me, said she had a great time last night. That's good. She wants to know if you're free Friday. Ryan leaned against his truck, suddenly exhausted beyond the physical labor. Marcus, don't tell me you're backing out already. You haven't been on a second date with anyone since Emma's mom left. You need this. I need a lot of things. A second date might not be one of them. The hell does that mean? It means... Ryan stopped, unsure how to explain the weight in his chest, the way coming home to that thermos of coffee this morning had felt more right than any moment on his date with Vanessa. It means I'm not sure it's fair to her if I'm not all in. Marcus studied him for a long moment. This is about the landlord, isn't it? What? No. Victoria's a 30-year-old billionaire who's way out of your league and probably doesn't even notice you exist beyond fixing her plumbing? Ryan's jaw tightened. She's not like that. Then what's she like, Ryan? Because from where I'm standing, you've been living in her guest house for 2 years, and the closest thing to a relationship you've had with any woman is arguing with her about construction projects. We don't just argue. Oh, sorry, you also fix her house for below-market rates and apparently drink her fancy coffee. My mistake. That's definitely the foundation of a healthy adult relationship. Fuck off, Marcus. I'm trying to help you, man. Vanessa is real. She's interested. She's actually available. Whatever fantasy you've built up about Victoria Hale, I haven't built up any fantasy. Really? So you're telling me if she showed up right now and said she wanted you, you'd choose Vanessa? Ryan didn't answer, couldn't answer. Because the truth was, if Victoria showed up right now and said anything even close to that, he'd… What? What would he do? She was his landlord, his employer, a billionaire who operated in a completely different world, who'd built her empire by being ruthless and alone, who'd made it clear from day one that she didn't do drama or complications. And he was a single father living in her guest house because it was the only stability he could afford to give his daughter. That's what I thought, Marcus said, not unkindly. Look, I get it. She's beautiful, she's powerful, she's mysterious, but she's also completely unavailable, and you're setting yourself up for heartbreak. Vanessa is a good woman. Give her a real chance. Yeah, Ryan said quietly. Yeah, okay. Friday night? I'll tell her you're in? Ryan nodded, ignoring the way his stomach twisted. Sure. Friday night. He got home at 7 to find the main house completely dark. That was unusual. Even when Victoria worked late, she left the kitchen lights on, had done so every single night for 2 years, like clockwork. Ryan sat in his truck for a minute, staring at the dark windows, and felt something like worry creep up his spine. She was fine. She was probably just out at a business dinner or staying late at the office downtown. Just because she always told him when she'd be gone overnight didn't mean she had to. Except she always did tell him, always left a note or sent a text. In Seattle until Thursday or conference in San Francisco, back Monday or Tokyo trip, estate manager has the emergency contact list. Ryan pulled out his phone. No messages. He shouldn't check on her. It was crossing a line, treating their weird professional friendship like something more than it was. Victoria could take care of herself. She'd been taking care of herself since she was 22 years old, building billion-dollar empires while men twice her age underestimated her. But the house was dark. And she'd left him coffee this morning. And she'd said, someone who doesn't see you. Like maybe she saw something Vanessa didn't. Ryan climbed out of the truck. The kitchen door was locked. That was the second unusual thing, and it sent the worry deeper. He used his key, the one Victoria had given him 6 months into his tenancy, pressed into his hand with a gruff, for emergencies or if you need to check the house when I'm traveling, and let himself in. Victoria? His voice echoed in the dark kitchen. You home? Silence. He moved through the first floor, checking rooms he rarely entered. The formal living room with its uncomfortable designer furniture. The library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves that Victoria had probably never read because she was always working. The dining room with a table that sat 20 but had never hosted a dinner party in the 2 years Ryan had lived here. All empty. All dark. He was about to leave, to accept that she was simply out and he was being ridiculous, when he heard it. A sound from the second floor. Quiet. Barely there, but definitely something. Ryan took the stairs 2 at a time, his heart rate picking up. Victoria? The sound came again, and this time he recognized it. Crying. Someone was crying, trying to muffle it, and failing. He found her in the third-floor office, the one with the massive windows overlooking the gardens. She sat on the floor with her back against the desk, knees pulled to her chest, and she was crying with the kind of desperation that suggested she'd been holding it in for a very long time. Victoria. She looked up, and the expression on her face nearly broke him. Shock first, then humiliation, then anger, at him for seeing her like this, at herself for being seen. Get out. Her voice was wrecked, raw. Ryan, get out. He should have listened, should have respected her privacy, her boundaries, all the careful rules they'd established. Instead, he closed the door behind him and sat down on the floor beside her. What happened? Nothing happened. I'm fine. Just, please go. You're not fine. I don't need you to. Her voice cracked, and she pressed her hands to her face, shoulders shaking with the effort of holding everything in. Please, just go. Ryan didn't move, didn't speak, just sat there beside her on the expensive hardwood floor of her third-floor office while she cried, and tried not to think about how this woman never let anyone see her break. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Victoria's breathing steadied. She lowered her hands, staring straight ahead at nothing. My father killed himself on this day, she said quietly. 16 years ago. Drove his car into the river because the debt was too much, and the shame was worse. Left me with nothing but bills and a reputation so ruined that banks laughed when I asked for loans. Ryan's chest tightened. Victoria, I rebuilt everything he destroyed. Took me 8 years, but I did it. Paid off every debt, restored the family name, built something bigger than he ever dreamed of. She laughed, brittle and sharp. And every year on this day, I work 18-hour shifts and pretend I don't remember that he chose drowning over staying alive for his daughter. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, I'm not. He was weak, and I'm not. That's the difference. But her hands were shaking, and her eyes were red, and she looked more fragile than Ryan had ever seen her. You don't have to be strong all the time, he said carefully. Yes, I do. That's what survival means. Victoria wiped at her face with sharp, angry movements. And now you've seen me like this, so congratulations. You can add emotionally unstable billionaire to your list of reasons to avoid me. I don't avoid you. You went on a date with someone else last night. The words hung between them, heavy and unexpected. Victoria's expression immediately shuddered, like she'd revealed something she hadn't meant to. That's... Ryan struggled for words. That doesn't have anything to do with avoiding you, doesn't it? You're my landlord, Victoria, my employer. You've made it pretty clear that you don't want complications. I made it clear I don't want drama. Those are different things. Are they? Victoria finally looked at him, really looked at him, and something raw and desperate flickered in her eyes. You have no idea how hard it is, she whispered. Watching you come and go, seeing you with Emma, knowing that you're building this whole life in my guest house, and I'm just the woman who owns the property. Ryan's heart was hammering now, his whole body tense with something he was afraid to name. You're not just anything. Then what am I? I don't know, but you're... He stopped, because finishing that sentence felt like jumping off a cliff. You're more. More than what? More than I should want. The admission hung between them, terrible and true. Victoria's breath caught, and for a second Ryan thought she might close down again, might retreat behind all those walls she'd spent years building. Instead, she said, She doesn't love you the way I do. The world tilted. What? Vanessa, your date. Whatever her name is. Victoria's voice was barely above a whisper. She doesn't love you the way I do. Ryan couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at this woman who'd just shattered 2 years of careful distance with 8 words. Victoria, forget it. She stood abruptly, putting distance between them. I shouldn't have said that. You should go. I'm not going anywhere. Ryan, you just told me you love me. I said forget it. How the hell am I supposed to forget that? Victoria's composure cracked, her voice rising. Because it doesn't matter. Because you're you and I'm me, and this... She gestured frantically between them. This doesn't work. You know it doesn't work. Why not? Because I'm a mess. Because everyone I've ever cared about has either left or betrayed me, and I can't... Her voice broke. I can't lose you too. I can't watch you realize that I'm too damaged, too broken, too much work, and decide you'd rather be with someone simple and uncomplicated and normal. You think I want simple? Everyone wants simple. I've spent 2 years watching you run a billion-dollar company from your kitchen table while somehow remembering that my daughter likes her pasta with the weird cheese. You help her with homework you don't have to care about, leave coffee for me when you know I've had a hard day, and pretend you don't notice when I use your tools to build Emma's school projects. That's not simple, Victoria. That's... He stopped, the truth finally crystallizing into something he couldn't deny anymore. That's family, he finished quietly. You've been building a family with us, and you didn't even realize it. Victoria stared at him, tears streaming down her face. I can't be someone's family, Ryan. I don't know how. Yeah, you do. You've been doing it for months. That's different. How? Because I'm not. We're not. She seemed to crumble in on herself. What if I'm too broken for this? What if I ruin it? Ryan stood, closing the distance between them. Then we'll figure it out together. You don't know what you're saying. You don't know what my life is like, the pressure, the constant scrutiny. I know you cry alone on the anniversary of your father's death. I know you work yourself into exhaustion because stopping means thinking, and thinking means feeling. I know you've convinced yourself that being strong means being alone. doesn't it? No. Ryan reached for her hand, half expecting her to pull away. She didn't. Being strong means trusting someone enough to let them help carry the weight. I don't know how to do that. Then learn. With me. Victoria looked down at their joined hands like she'd never seen anything more terrifying. What about Vanessa? There is no Vanessa. There was a date, and it was fine, and I spent the whole time thinking about you. About coming home to you, about whether you'd eaten dinner or if you'd worked through the evening again. That's not, I'm in love with you. The words came out rough, desperate. I've been in love with you for months, maybe longer, and I kept telling myself it was impossible because you're you and I'm just, don't. Victoria's voice was fierce now. Don't you dare finish that sentence by making yourself smaller than you are. You're the best man I've ever known, Ryan Carter. You're kind and steady, and you see people, really see them, in a way most people never learn. You see me. Then let me keep seeing you. It won't be easy. I don't want easy. I want you. Victoria laughed, the sound wet and broken and maybe a little bit hopeful. This is insane. Probably. Emma already loves you. She has for months. The media, the pressure, everyone will think you're with me for money. Let them think whatever they want. I know the truth. Victoria pulled her hand free, and Ryan's heart sank until she reached up and cupped his face instead, searching his expression for any hint of doubt or deception. If we do this, she whispered, if we actually try this, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't let me run. When it gets hard, when I panic and try to push you away, don't let me run. Ryan covered her hands with his own. I promise. I'm serious. I will try to sabotage this. I will convince myself it's not real, that you'll leave, that I'm not worth... He kissed her. It wasn't smooth or planned or anything like the practice kiss he'd shared with Vanessa the night before. It was desperate and messy and tasted like tears and coffee, and it felt like coming home after years of being lost. When they finally broke apart, Victoria was smiling through her tears. That was a terrible first kiss. Want to try again? Yes, she whispered. Yes, I really do. So they did. And somewhere in the dark office on the third floor of her empty mansion, Victoria Hale stopped being alone. Ryan woke up the next morning in his own bed with absolutely no idea how he'd gotten there. The last clear memory he had was sitting on Victoria's office floor at something past midnight, her head resting against his shoulder while they talked about everything and nothing, her childhood, his failed marriage, Emma's terrible middle school drama. The specific way Victoria organized her project files that Ryan found both hilarious and slightly concerning. He remembered her laughing. Actually laughing. Not the polite corporate chuckle she used in business calls, but a real unguarded sound that made his chest ache. He remembered walking her to her bedroom door and the way she'd hesitated before going inside, like she was afraid the whole night might disappear if she let him out of her sight. He remembered promising he'd see her in the morning, but now it was morning, and his phone was buzzing with a text from Marcus that just said, "Dude, what the hell happened with Vanessa?" She's pissed. Ryan sat up too fast, the room spinning slightly. Right. Vanessa. The second date he'd agreed to. The second date that was supposed to happen Friday night, while he was apparently busy having an emotional breakdown with his billionaire landlord in her third-floor office. I'll handle it, he typed back, then immediately deleted it because he had no idea how to handle it. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Victoria. Coffee on your porch. We should probably talk about what happens next. Probably. Yeah, that seemed reasonable. They'd crossed every professional boundary in existence last night, confessed feelings that couldn't be taken back, and kissed in a way that still made Ryan's skin feel too tight when he thought about it. Talking about what happens next seemed like the bare minimum of adult responsibility. He found Emma already awake, sitting on the porch steps and drinking from the thermos Victoria had left. His 13-year-old daughter looked at him with an expression that was way too knowing for someone who should have been asleep during last night's entire disaster. So, Emma said casually, are you and Victoria, together now? Or is this one of those weird adult things where you pretend nothing happened? Ryan stopped in the doorway. What makes you think anything happened? Dad? Come on. You came home at 2 in the morning. Victoria left coffee with a note that says, we should talk. And you look like you either had the best night of your life or the worst one, and I can't tell which. How do you even know what time I got home? I'm 13, not dead. I hear things. Emma took another sip of coffee, which she definitely shouldn't be drinking. Also, Victoria texted me this morning asking if you were okay, which she's literally never done before. So yeah, something happened. Ryan sat down beside her, suddenly exhausted despite having just woken up. It's complicated. Everything's complicated. That's not an answer. I don't have a good answer yet, Em. I'm still figuring it out. Emma studied him for a long moment with those eyes that were too old, too perceptive. She'd gotten that from her mother, the ability to see straight through bullshit, but unlike her mother, Emma actually stuck around to deal with the truth. Do you love her? Emma asked quietly. Ryan's chest tightened. Yeah, I do. Does she love you? She says she does. Then what's complicated about it? She's our landlord, my employer, a billionaire who operates in a completely different world. Dad! Emma cut him off with the kind of exasperated patience only teenagers could manage. I've watched you two dance around each other for like a year. She makes you coffee every morning. You fix everything in her house without her asking. She helps me with homework and pretends she's not doing it just to spend time near you. You're already basically together. You're just too scared to admit it. I'm not scared. You're terrified. I get it. Mom screwed you up pretty bad. Emma's voice softened. But Victoria isn't Mom. She doesn't want to leave. She wants you to stay. Anyone with eyes can see that. Ryan pulled his daughter into a sideways hug, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't listen. But she was smiling now, leaning into him the way she used to when she was little and the world felt safer. So, what are you going to do? I have no idea. Well, you should probably start by actually talking to her instead of hiding out here with me. I'm not hiding. You're totally hiding. I'm drinking coffee and having an important conversation with my daughter. You're stalling. Emma stood, stretching. I'm going to Jenny's house. Her mom's taking us to the mall. You should go talk to Victoria before you overthink yourself into a panic attack. I don't have panic attacks. You had one last year when that building inspector showed up unannounced. That was different. That was work stress. This is relationship stress. Same symptoms, different trigger. Emma grabbed her backpack from inside the guest house. Text me later and tell me how it goes. And Dad? Yeah? Don't screw this up. She's good for you. For us. Then she was gone, jogging down the driveway toward the main gate, where Jenny's mom was probably already waiting, leaving Ryan alone with a thermos of expensive coffee and the crushing weight of actually having to be an adult about this. He lasted about 10 minutes before walking up to the main house. Victoria answered the kitchen door in yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt that probably cost more than Ryan's entire wardrobe, her hair wet from a shower and her face free of makeup. She looked younger like this, more vulnerable, and Ryan's heart did something complicated in his chest. Hi, she said, and her voice was carefully neutral in that way that meant she was absolutely terrified. Hi. They stood there for a beat too long, the air between them heavy with everything they'd said last night and everything they still needed to figure out. Come in, Victoria finally said, stepping back. I made breakfast. Well, I attempted breakfast. The eggs are probably terrible. The kitchen smelled like burned butter and ambition. Victoria had clearly tried to make an omelet and failed spectacularly, based on the scrambled egg disaster currently congealing in the pan. There was also toast, slightly charred, and what looked like turkey bacon that had been microwaved instead of properly cooked. Ryan felt something warm and almost painful bloom in his chest. You tried to cook. Don't sound so surprised. I'm capable of basic domestic tasks. You have a private chef who comes 3 times a week. Had. I fired him last month. Victoria grabbed the pan with more force than necessary, dumping the sad eggs onto 2 plates. He kept trying to make everything fancy. I just wanted normal food. So you decided to poison us both instead? I watched a YouTube video. It looked simple. Ryan picked up a fork, poking at the eggs. They had the consistency of rubber and tasted faintly like dish soap, but he ate them anyway because Victoria was watching him with an expression that suggested his reaction mattered more than it should. They're terrible, she said flatly. They're not great. You're still eating them. You made them for me. Something shifted in Victoria's expression, that careful armor cracking just slightly. I've never cooked for anyone before. Not really. The chef made things, and I occasionally reheated them, but I've never actually tried to make something from scratch for another person. Why start now? Because that's what people do, isn't it? When they're trying to... She stopped, her fingers tightening around her coffee mug. I don't know what I'm doing, Ryan. I woke up this morning and thought maybe last night was a mistake. Maybe we should pretend it never happened. And then I thought about you leaving, and I physically couldn't breathe. So I tried to make breakfast like a normal person who's trying to keep someone. And I failed at that too. Ryan set down his fork. You didn't fail. The eggs taste like chemicals. I don't care about the eggs. You should. They're genuinely awful. Victoria. He reached across the table, catching her hand. I'm not going anywhere. You don't know that. Yeah, I do. People always leave. Everyone leaves. They get bored, or they realize I'm too much work, or they find someone easier. I don't want easier. Ryan squeezed her hand. I want you. Terrible eggs and all. Victoria's laugh was shaky. This is insane. We're insane. Probably. I have a board meeting at 10. There are going to be questions about the Singapore development, and I need to convince 3 skeptical investors that the projected ROI is worth the risk. And I can barely think straight because all I can focus on is whether you're going to change your mind. I'm not going to change my mind. You say that now. Victoria, I'm in love with you. That's not changing between now and your board meeting. She stared at him like he'd just spoken a language she didn't understand. How are you so calm about this? I'm not calm. I'm completely freaking out inside, but I'm also sure. Ryan stood, moving around the table to her. Last night, you asked me to promise I wouldn't let you run when things got hard. Remember? I remember. This is you trying to run. I'm not... Victoria stopped, her jaw tightening. Maybe I am. Why? Because I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be someone's girlfriend or partner or whatever we're calling this. I don't know how to fit another person into my life when I can barely manage the life I already have. And I'm terrified that I'm going to screw this up so badly that you'll hate me. Ryan cupped her face gently, making her look at him. You've been fitting me and Emma into your life for months. You already know how to do this. That was different. That was just being neighborly. Victoria, you helped my daughter with calculus that isn't even in her curriculum yet. You leave me coffee every morning. You remember that Emma likes her pasta with that specific cheese, and you make too much on purpose so we can eat together. That's not being neighborly. That's family. Tears welled in Victoria's eyes. What if I'm bad at it? Then we'll figure it out together. That's how this works. I don't have a good track record with relationships. The last person I trusted, her voice cracked. He took my business plans, my contacts, everything I'd built, and tried to sell them to my competitors. Told me I was too cold, too ambitious, too damaged to love. That was 3 years ago, and I haven't let anyone close since. I'm not him. I know. Logically, I know that. But the scared part of my brain keeps screaming that everyone leaves eventually, and it's easier to be alone than to... She broke off, pressing her hands to her face. Ryan pulled her into his arms, and she collapsed against him like someone who'd been holding themselves upright through sheer force of will. She didn't cry, but her breathing was ragged and her hands clutched at his shirt like he might disappear if she let go. I'm not going anywhere, Ryan repeated quietly, his lips against her hair. You're going to have to try a lot harder than terrible eggs to get rid of me. Victoria's laugh was muffled against his chest. What about Vanessa? I'm calling her today to apologize and explain. She's going to hate me. She's going to be disappointed. There's a difference. Victoria pulled back enough to look at him, her eyes red but dry. Marcus is going to kill you. Marcus will get over it. Your coworkers are going to have opinions. Let them have opinions. I stopped caring what people thought about my choices around the time my ex-wife abandoned our daughter, and I became a single father living paycheck to paycheck. The media might find out. They'll say terrible things about you. Then they'll say terrible things. Victoria, I need you to hear me right now. Ryan tightened his hold on her. I know this is scary. I know you've been hurt, but I'm not making this decision lightly. I've spent 2 years watching you work yourself to exhaustion while pretending you don't need anyone. I've seen you with Emma, the way you light up when she understands something you've taught her. I've heard you laugh at 2 in the morning over something stupid I said about foundation problems. I know exactly who you are, and I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you, even though it's going to be complicated. Especially because it's going to be complicated. Simple is boring. Victoria studied his face for a long moment, searching for doubt or hesitation. Finally, she said, I have to leave for the office in 20 minutes. Okay. And I'll probably be home late. The board meeting always runs over, and then there's dinner with the Singapore team. Victoria. What? I'm not asking you to change your schedule. I'm just asking you to let me be part of your life. She kissed him then, soft and careful, like she was still half convinced he might vanish. What if I'm terrible at this? Then you'll be terrible at it with me. That's not reassuring. It's honest. I'm going to panic frequently. I know. And I'm going to work too much and forget to eat and probably drive you crazy. Victoria. What? Go to your board meeting. We'll figure the rest out later. She kissed him again, longer this time, then pulled away with visible effort. Tonight, we should talk about what we're actually doing, set boundaries, establish expectations, or we could just see how it goes. I don't just see how things go. I plan. I strategize. I create detailed roadmaps with contingency protocols. Ryan laughed, and Victoria's expression shifted into something that might have been embarrassment if she allowed herself such vulnerabilities. I'm being ridiculous, she said. You're being you. I like you. You say that now. Wait until you see my project management spreadsheets. I've seen your project management spreadsheets. They're color-coded and mildly terrifying. I'm still here. Victoria grabbed her phone and bag, moving toward the door with the efficient precision of someone who'd spent years organizing her life into 15-minute increments. But she paused in the doorway, looking back at him with an expression that was almost shy. Ryan? Yeah? Thank you for the eggs, for eating them even though they were awful. Anytime. I'll try to do better next time. Or we could just order takeout and pretend you cooked it. That seems dishonest. Victoria, you run a billion-dollar company. I think you can handle a little white lie about breakfast. She smiled then, a real smile that reached her eyes, and Ryan felt something settle in his chest. This was going to work. Somehow, against all logic and reason, this was actually going to work. After she left, Ryan spent 20 minutes cleaning up the kitchen disaster before calling Vanessa. She answered on the third ring. I was wondering when you'd call. I'm sorry, Ryan said, because there was no point in dancing around it. I should have called sooner. Marcus said you had a family emergency. Is everything okay? Everyone's fine, but I need to be honest with you about something. There was a pause on the other end. When Vanessa spoke again, her voice was careful. You're about to tell me you can't do Friday. I can't do Friday, or any other night. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. I'm sorry, Vanessa, you're great, and our date was nice, but my heart's not in it. There's someone else. The landlord? Ryan blinked. How did you You mentioned her 3 times during dinner, and the way you talked about her. Vanessa's laugh was soft and not entirely unkind. I've been the person someone settles for before. I'm not doing it again. I wasn't trying to settle. I know, but you would have been, eventually, she sighed. For what it's worth, I hope it works out with her. You seemed happy when you talked about her, happier than you were sitting across from me. I really am sorry. Don't be. Better to know now than 6 months from now. A pause. She's lucky, whoever she is. I'm the lucky one. After they hung up, Ryan sat in Victoria's kitchen surrounded by the evidence of her terrible cooking attempt and felt something like hope. His phone buzzed. Emma. Well? Well, what? Did you talk to her or did you chicken out? We talked. And we're figuring it out. That's the most dad answer ever. Are you together or not? Ryan stared at his phone, trying to figure out how to explain something he didn't entirely understand himself. Finally, he typed, Yeah, we're together. Emma's response was immediate. Finally. I thought you were going to make me wait until I graduated college. You're 13. Exactly. 13 years of watching you be lonely. This is the best day of my life. Don't you think you're being a little dramatic? Dad, you've been in love with her for like a year and now you're finally doing something about it. I'm allowed to be dramatic. This is huge. 1 year is an exaggeration. Fine. 10 months. Still forever in teenager years, Ryan smiled despite himself. Get home safe from the mall. And don't spend all your money. No promises. Love you, Dad. Love you too, kid. The rest of the day passed in a strange blur. Ryan went to work, endured Marcus's interrogation about the Vanessa situation, and managed to avoid most of the follow-up questions by claiming he needed to focus on the electrical systems that were still completely screwed up from the project manager's latest specifications change. But his mind kept drifting back to Victoria, to the way she'd looked in her kitchen that morning, vulnerable and terrified, and trying so hard to do something normal like make breakfast, to the way she'd kissed him like she was afraid he'd disappear, to the way she'd said, "Thank you for eating them even though they were awful," like terrible eggs somehow mattered more than billion-dollar business deals. He got home at 6 to find Emma already back, sprawled on the couch with her phone and a level of teenage smugness that was borderline unbearable. "So," she said without looking up, "when's Victoria coming over for dinner?" "I have no idea. She's working late." "She's always working late. You should make her dinner and take it to her." "I'm not going to interrupt her work to feed her." "Dad, she literally burns eggs. Someone needs to make sure she eats real food." Emma finally looked at him. "Also, it's romantic. Girls like that stuff." "Since when are you an expert on what girls like?" "I am a girl. I have built-in expertise." She sat up, suddenly serious. "You like her, right? Like, actually like her, not just think she's pretty?" "I like her, Em, a lot." "Good, because she's been really good to us, and if you hurt her, I'm going to be so mad." Ryan sat down beside his daughter. "I'm not going to hurt her. You better not. She's the first person who's ever treated me like I'm smart instead of just a kid." "I treat you like you're smart. You're my dad. You have to. Victoria doesn't have to do anything for me, but she does anyway." Emma leaned against his shoulder. "I really like her, Dad. Like, I wouldn't hate it if she was around more." "Yeah? Yeah, she's cool. Weird, but cool." Ryan pressed a kiss to the top of Emma's head. "I think she'd really like hearing that." "Don't tell her I said that. I have a reputation to maintain." "What reputation?" "My cool, aloof teenager reputation." "Em, you're the least aloof person I know." "Exactly, which is why I have to work so hard at it." But she was grinning now, that gap-toothed smile she'd never quite grown out of. At 8:30, Ryan's phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Still at the office. Board meeting was a disaster. Singapore team wants to renegotiate everything. I'm going to be here until midnight. Did you eat? Does coffee count as eating?" "No." "Then no." Ryan looked at Emma, who was watching him with an expression that clearly said, "I told you so." "Fine," he muttered. "You win. I'll take her dinner." "Yes, this is the best day ever." Emma jumped up, already moving toward the kitchen. "Make her that pasta thing you do, the one with the chicken and the cream sauce. Everyone loves that." "When did you become a matchmaker?" "I've been a matchmaker for like 6 months. You two were just too dumb to notice." Ryan started pulling ingredients from the fridge. "You know, for someone who claims to be aloof, you're very invested in my love life." "That's because your love life directly impacts my living situation. If you and Victoria work out, we get to stay in the nice guest house. If you screw it up, we're back to apartment hunting." Emma grabbed the pasta from the pantry. "So yeah, I'm invested. This is self-preservation." "That's mercenary. That's practical." But her smile was soft. "Also, I really do like her. She's good for you, Dad. You smile more when she's around." An hour later, Ryan was standing outside Victoria's downtown office with a container of still warm pasta and absolutely no plan beyond make sure she eats something. The building was one of those modern glass towers that looked expensive even from the outside, all sharp lines and reflective surfaces. He'd never been here before, had never had reason to see Victoria in her professional element. The security guard at the front desk looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Sir, it's almost 10 p.m. Office hours ended at 6. "I know. I'm here to see Victoria Hale." "Ms. Hale isn't accepting visitors." "Can you call up and ask? Tell her Ryan's here with dinner." The guard's expression shifted into something between amusement and pity. "You're the boyfriend?" Ryan hesitated. Were they doing that? Using labels? They'd barely figured out what they were doing that morning. Yeah, I guess I am." The guard's smile widened. "She mentioned you. Said if a guy with construction dust in his hair showed up with food, to send him right up." He gestured toward the elevators. 23rd floor, corner office. Can't miss it." The elevator ride up felt longer than it should have. Ryan spent the entire time wondering if this was a terrible idea, if showing up at Victoria's office was crossing some unspoken boundary they hadn't established yet. But Emma was right. Victoria needed to eat, and left to her own devices, she'd probably work until she passed out. The 23rd floor was empty except for the soft glow of lights coming from the corner office. Ryan found Victoria exactly where he'd expected, sitting behind an enormous desk covered in papers and architectural models, her reading glasses sliding down her nose and her hair pulled into a messy knot. She looked up when he knocked, and the expression that crossed her face was worth every second of doubt he'd had on the way over. "You brought me dinner," she said, and her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Emma insisted. She said you can't be trusted to feed yourself. "Your daughter is wise beyond her years." Victoria stood, moving around the desk with obvious exhaustion. "The board meeting was awful. They want to pull funding from the Singapore project, and the team there is threatening to walk if we don't renegotiate the timeline." Victoria. "What?" "Eat first, crisis management second." She stared at the pasta container like it was a puzzle she couldn't solve. "You made this?" "It's just pasta." "You made me pasta and drove all the way downtown to bring it to me at 10 p.m. "Yeah." "Why?" Ryan set the container on her desk, pulling out the fork he'd remembered to pack. "Because you were working late and hadn't eaten. Seemed like a good enough reason." Victoria sat down slowly, opening the container with careful hands. She took one bite, and something in her expression crumbled. "This is really good. It's Emma's favorite. Figured you might like it too." She took another bite, then another, and Ryan realized she was actually crying, silent tears tracking down her face while she ate pasta at her desk at 10 p.m. in an empty office building. "Hey," he said softly, moving around the desk to her. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's wrong. I don't know." Victoria set down the fork. "I've been sitting here for 3 hours trying to salvage a deal that's falling apart, and all I could think about was you. About this morning. About whether I said the right things or if I scared you off. And then you show up with food like it's the most normal thing in the world, and Ryan pulled her out of the chair and into his arms. She came willingly, burying her face against his shoulder. "I keep waiting for you to realize this is too much," she whispered. "That I'm too much. You're not too much. I work 18-hour days. I have board meetings that turn into disasters. I can't cook to save my life, and I apparently cry over pasta now." "Victoria." "What?" "You're not too much. You're exactly right." She pulled back enough to look at him, mascara smudged and eyes red. "How can you possibly think that?" "Because I've spent 2 years watching you be brilliant and driven and completely terrified of letting anyone see you be human. And now you're letting me see it, and it's—" He paused, searching for the right words. "It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Even though I'm a mess? Especially because you're a mess. It means you're real." Victoria kissed him then, tasting like cream sauce and salt, and Ryan thought that maybe this, standing in an empty office at 10 p.m. holding a crying billionaire who'd just discovered she liked being taken care of, maybe this was what love actually looked like. Not perfect. Not easy, but real. And real was enough. They stayed in that office until nearly midnight, Victoria eating her pasta while explaining the Singapore disaster in detail that Ryan only half understood. Something about zoning regulations and local partnerships and investors who were suddenly developing cold feet over projections they'd approved 3 months ago. But he listened anyway, asked questions when she paused, and watched the tension slowly drain from her shoulders as she talked through the problems out loud. "I'm boring you," Victoria said eventually, setting down the empty container. "You don't actually care about commercial real estate development in Southeast Asia." "I care that it's stressing you out." "That's not the same as caring about the actual problem." "Does it need to be?" Ryan gathered up the empty containers. "You've been carrying this alone for hours. Sometimes talking helps. even if the other person doesn't have solutions. Victoria studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. My ex used to tell me that business talk was a turnoff, said I needed to learn when to turn off the CEO and just be a woman. Your ex was an idiot. He had a point. Most people don't want to hear about zoning disputes over dinner. Most people aren't dating you. Ryan moved back to her side of the desk. And I'm not asking you to be someone else. Talk about your work if you want to. Don't if you don't. But stop assuming I'm going to get bored just because you're being yourself. That's easy to say now. Wait until I've spent 3 weeks obsessing over a single project and haven't talked about anything else. Then I'll obsess about it with you, or I'll tell you when I need a break. That's how communication works, Victoria. She laughed, the sound tired but genuine. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. We're just both really good at making things complicated. Speak for yourself. I'm a model of simplicity and straightforward communication. You have a color-coded spreadsheet for your morning routine. That's called organization, not complication. Victoria, the spreadsheet has conditional formatting based on whether it's a weekday or weekend, and separate protocols for board meeting days versus regular work days. And that's insane. Normal people just wake up and make coffee. Normal people also don't run billion-dollar companies before they turn 30. But she was smiling now, that rare, unguarded expression that made Ryan's chest ache. I should let you go home. Emma's probably wondering where you are. Emma knows where I am. She's the one who insisted I bring you dinner. I like your daughter. She likes you too. Told me if I screw this up, she's going to be furious with me. Victoria's smile widened. Smart girl. They drove back to the estate in separate cars, Ryan following Victoria's sleek black sedan through the empty Portland streets. The city was quiet at this hour, most of downtown already shut down for the night. Ryan found himself watching her taillights like they might disappear if he looked away, still half convinced the past 24 hours had been some kind of stress-induced hallucination. But then they were pulling through the estate gates, parking side by side near the main house, and Victoria was standing in the driveway looking at him with an expression that suggested she was having similar thoughts about reality. This is weird, she said. Which part? All of it. Coming home together. Knowing you're going to walk me to my door instead of going straight to the guest house. Having to figure out what happens next. Ryan closed the distance between them, catching her hand. What do you want to happen next? I don't know. I've never done this before. You've never dated anyone. Not like this. Not where they actually know me. Victoria's fingers tightened around his. Every other relationship I've had has been, strategic isn't the right word, but close. People who fit into the right social circles, who looked good at charity events, who understood that my career came first. But you, I'm none of those things. No, you're real and terrifying. I'm terrifying. You make me want things I've convinced myself I couldn't have. That's absolutely terrifying. Ryan pulled her closer until they were standing in the driveway of her mansion like a couple of teenagers afraid to say goodnight. What kind of things? Normal things. Coming home to someone. Eating dinner together. Waking up next to the same person more than once. Victoria's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. A family. You can have those things. Can I? Because my track record suggests otherwise. Your track record is based on being with the wrong people. And you're the right person? I'm the person who's standing here at midnight telling you I'm not going anywhere. That's got to count for something. Victoria kissed him instead of answering, and Ryan was starting to realize that was her tell. When words got too hard, too real, she retreated into action instead. He let her, because pushing Victoria Hale only made her defensive, and defensive Victoria was about as approachable as a steel wall. When they finally broke apart, she rested her forehead against his and said, I should go inside. I have calls at 6. You always have calls at 6. Exactly. Which means I need to sleep. But she didn't move, didn't let go of his hand. What if you didn't take the calls tomorrow? Ryan suggested. What if you slept in, had a normal breakfast, spent the day doing something that wasn't work? That's not realistic. Why not? Because I have a company to run, projects in 3 countries, and a board that's already questioning my decisions. I can't just take a day off because my boyfriend thinks I work too hard. Ryan felt something warm bloom in his chest at the word boyfriend, but he pushed past it. When's the last time you took a full day off? Victoria hesitated. I don't know, a year ago, maybe longer? That's not healthy. That's business. That's going to burn you out. I'm fine. Victoria, Ryan, I appreciate the concern, but I've been managing my schedule for a decade. I know my limits. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you work 18-hour days, forget to eat, and have panic attacks in your office when things get overwhelming. Her expression shuttered closed. That was one time that you've told me about. This isn't fair. You can't just, we've been together for one day and you're already trying to change how I run my life? I'm not trying to change anything. I'm trying to make sure you don't work yourself into the ground. That's my choice to make, and it's my choice to care about it. They stared at each other in the driveway, the first real fight brewing between them like a storm. Neither of them knew how to navigate. Ryan could see the moment Victoria decided to retreat, her shoulders tensing, her expression going carefully neutral. I should go inside, she said again, pulling her hand free. Don't do that. Do what? Shut down because we're having a disagreement. We're allowed to argue, Victoria. That's normal. Nothing about this is normal. But her voice cracked slightly. I don't know how to do this, Ryan. I don't know how to let someone care about me without feeling like I'm being controlled. Ryan took a breath, forcing himself to soften. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to tell you that watching you exhaust yourself scares me. There's a difference. Is there? Because it feels the same. How did he do it? Your ex. How did he try to control you? Victoria's jaw tightened. He said, I worked too much, that I cared more about my career than our relationship, that if I really loved him, I'd make time for us instead of always putting business first. And what did you do? I put business first. Because he was asking me to choose between my company and him, and I'd built that company from nothing. I wasn't going to sacrifice it for someone who couldn't understand why it mattered. I'm not asking you to sacrifice anything. I'm asking you to take care of yourself. That's what he said too, at first. Victoria wrapped her arms around herself. Then it became, take care of yourself by skipping this meeting, and take care of yourself by letting someone else handle that project. And eventually it was just, be less of who you are so I can feel like I matter more. Ryan felt something cold settle in his stomach. I would never ask you to be less. You say that now. I mean it. Everyone means it at first. They stood in silence for a long moment, the weight of Victoria's past relationships hanging between them like a ghost neither of them could quite banish. Finally, Ryan said, I can't promise I won't worry about you, and I can't promise I won't say something when I think you're pushing yourself too hard. But I can promise I'll listen when you tell me to back off, and I can promise I'm not trying to make you smaller so I can feel bigger. Deal? Victoria searched his face for a long moment. You're really not going to run when this gets complicated, are you? Nope. Even though I'm clearly a disaster with trust issues and bad relationship patterns? Especially because of that. You're either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Ryan reached for her hand again, relieved when she let him take it. Can we agree to something? Depends on what it is. If something I do reminds you of your ex, tell me. Don't just shut down and assume I'm trying to control you. Give me a chance to explain myself before you retreat. Victoria nodded slowly. And if I think you're being overprotective, I'll tell you instead of getting defensive. That works. This is already exhausting and we've only been together for a day. Yeah, well, we're both disasters. At least we're disasters together. Victoria's laugh was soft and a little broken. I really am sorry about getting defensive. It's just old patterns are hard to break. I know. We'll figure it out. Ryan pulled her close again, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Now go inside and get some sleep. You have calls at 6. You're not coming in? Do you want me to? The question hung between them, weighted with implications neither of them had addressed yet. They'd kissed, confessed feelings, navigated their first fight. But they hadn't talked about the physical side of things, about what moving forward actually looked like in practical terms. Victoria's expression shifted into something vulnerable. I don't know. Maybe? But also that feels too fast, and I don't want to mess this up by rushing things. Then I'll go back to the guest house. We can take this at whatever pace feels right. You're not disappointed? Victoria, I've wanted you for months. I can wait a little longer. What if a little longer turns into a lot longer? Then it does. I'm not going anywhere. She kissed him goodnight with a desperation that suggested she still didn't quite believe he was real, then disappeared into the mansion. Ryan walked back to the guest house, feeling like he'd just survived a battle he hadn't known he was fighting. Emma was still awake, sitting on the couch with her phone and a knowing expression. "How'd it go?" she asked without preamble. "We had our first fight." "Already? What about?" "Whether she works too much." Emma snorted. "Dad, she definitely works too much. That's not even a debate. She thinks I'm trying to control her." "Are you?" "No, I'm trying to make sure she doesn't collapse from exhaustion." "Those are different things," Emma said carefully, "but I get why she might not see it that way. Rich people have trust issues." "When did you become an expert on rich people?" "I live on a billionaire's estate. I observe things." Emma set down her phone. "Did you guys work it out?" "I think so." "Maybe. I don't know." That's reassuring. Ryan collapsed onto the couch beside his daughter. "This is harder than I thought it would be." "Well, yeah. She's been alone forever, and you've been alone forever. Neither of you knows how to be with someone. It's going to be messy." "How are you so wise about relationships when you're 13? "I read a lot of young adult novels. They're very educational." Emma leaned against his shoulder. "But seriously, Dad, you're doing fine. She likes you. You like her. The rest is just figuring out the details." "The details feel pretty important right now." "They always do at the beginning. Give it time." Ryan pulled his daughter into a hug, grateful for her presence in a way that made his throat tight. "When did you grow up?" "I've been grown up. You just don't notice because I'm short. You're not that short." "I'm 5'2", Dad. That's objectively short." "You're 13. You're still growing." "Mom was 5'3". "I'm probably done." The mention of Emma's mother hung in the air for a moment. They didn't talk about her much anymore. What was there to say? She'd left when Emma was 4, decided being a mother was too hard, too limiting. Last Ryan had heard, she was in California with a new husband and no interest in the daughter she'd abandoned. "You're better off without her," Emma said quietly, like she could read his thoughts. "We both are." "I know. And Victoria's better than her, like infinitely better." "That's not a high bar, Em." "Okay, but she's also just better in general. She actually cares. She shows up. She doesn't make promises she can't keep." Emma pulled back to look at him. "Don't screw this up, Dad. Please." "I'm trying not to." "Try harder." Ryan laughed despite himself. "Yes, ma'am." The next morning started with coffee on his porch again, but this time there was also a note. "I'm sorry about last night. Can we try again tonight? Dinner at the main house, 7 p.m. I promise not to cook. V." Emma read the note over his shoulder and grinned. "She's apologizing. That's good. Rich people don't apologize unless they really mean it." Again with the rich people generalizations. Am I wrong? Ryan thought about Victoria's defensive walls, her difficulty with vulnerability. "No, you're not wrong." He spent the day at work trying not to check his phone every 5 minutes. The project was still a disaster. The manager had changed specifications again, and Ryan's crew was ready to mutiny. Marcus cornered him during lunch break with an expression that suggested he knew exactly what was going on. "So," Marcus said, biting into his sandwich, "you and the billionaire, huh?" "How did you—" "Vanessa told me. Said you confessed there was someone else." Marcus studied him. "I'm guessing it's the landlord." Ryan nodded, bracing for the lecture. Instead, Marcus sighed. "Look, I think you're insane, but I've also known you for 5 years, and I've never seen you look at anyone the way you look at her. So if you're going to be insane, at least be happy about it." "That's it? No warnings about different worlds or gold diggers or—" "Ryan, the woman owns half of downtown Portland. If anyone's the gold digger in this situation, it's you." "I'm not—" "I know you're not. That's why this might actually work." Marcus took another bite of his sandwich. "Just don't let her steamroll you. Rich people are used to getting what they want." "She's not like that." "Everyone's like that when they have enough money. Just keep your boundaries clear." Ryan thought about Victoria's panic over him asking her to take a day off, her immediate assumption that he was trying to control her. "Boundaries, right. You have no idea what you're doing, do you?" "Not even a little bit," Marcus laughed. "Well, at least you're honest about it." Ryan got home at 6:30, which gave him exactly 30 minutes to shower, change, and figure out what the hell you wore to dinner at your girlfriend's mansion. He settled on jeans and a button-down shirt that wasn't covered in drywall dust, which felt like the best he could manage on short notice. Emma appeared in his doorway looking far too pleased with herself. "You're nervous." "I'm not nervous." "You changed shirts 3 times. That's nervous." "I'm trying to look presentable." "For a woman who's seen you covered in construction dust at 6 a.m., Dad, she doesn't care what you wear." "That's not the point." "Then what is the point?" Ryan sat down on his bed, suddenly exhausted. "I don't know. I just want this to work." Emma's expression softened. She came and sat beside him, small and serious. "It's going to work. You're both just scared because it matters. That's normal. When did you get so smart about this stuff?" "I told you. Young adult novels. Very educational." She bumped his shoulder with hers. "Now go. Don't keep her waiting. And Dad?" "Yeah? Have fun. You're allowed to be happy." Ryan walked up to the main house, feeling like he was heading to something far more significant than dinner. Victoria answered the door in jeans and a sweater, her hair down and her feet bare. And she looked so different from the polished CEO he'd found in her office last night that Ryan actually stopped walking. "Is this okay?" Victoria asked, gesturing at her casual clothes. "I wasn't sure what the dress code was for dinner with your boyfriend in your own house." "It's perfect. You're perfect." "I'm really not, but I appreciate the sentiment." She stepped back to let him in. "I ordered Thai food. I figured that was safer than attempting to cook again." The kitchen smelled like pad Thai and curry, takeout containers spread across the marble island. It was so beautifully normal that Ryan felt something loosen in his chest. "About last night," Victoria started, "you don't have to—" "Yes, I do. I overreacted. You weren't trying to control me, and I shouldn't have assumed you were." She took a breath. "I've been thinking about what you said, about old patterns being hard to break. And you're right. I spent 3 years with someone who tried to make me smaller, and now I see that threat everywhere, even when it's not there." "I get it." "Do you? Because I'm not sure I do." Victoria moved to the island, starting to serve food onto plates with careful precision. "I built my entire life around being independent, not needing anyone, not relying on anyone. And now you're here, and I want to rely on you. And that's terrifying because what if you leave? What if I let myself need you and then you decide I'm too much work?" Ryan crossed to her, stilling her hands. "I'm not going to leave." "You can't know that." "Yeah, I can. Victoria, look at me." He waited until she met his eyes. "I've spent 2 years getting to know you. The workaholic parts, the brilliant parts, the parts that are scared of being vulnerable. I'm not going anywhere. What if I mess this up? Then we'll figure it out together. That's what couples do." "I don't know how to be part of a couple." "Neither do I. My last relationship ended with my wife abandoning our daughter. I'm not exactly an expert here." Victoria's expression shifted into something softer. "We're quite a pair, aren't we?" "Absolutely a disaster. But maybe disasters work better together." "That's the theory." They ate dinner sitting on the floor of Victoria's living room because she admitted she never actually used the formal dining room, and the kitchen stools were uncomfortable for long conversations. Emma had been right about the Thai food. It was excellent, and more importantly, it gave them something to do with their hands while they talked about everything and nothing. Victoria told him about her first development project, how she'd been 23 and terrified, convinced she was going to fail and prove everyone right who'd said she'd never escape her father's shadow. Ryan told her about the first time Emma had called him Dad after her mother left, how he'd cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes because he was so scared of screwing up this tiny person who was counting on him. "You're a good father," Victoria said quietly. "Emma's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have her. She keeps me grounded." "She's remarkable. You know that, right? At 13, she's already more emotionally intelligent than most adults I know." "She gets that from her mother, actually, the emotional intelligence part. Sarah was good at reading people, understanding what they needed." Ryan paused. "She was just bad at staying." "Do you still love her?" "No, I don't think I ever really did. Not the way I should have. We were young and stupid, and Emma was an accident that we tried to make work." He met Victoria's eyes. "I know what it feels like to be with the wrong person, and I know this isn't that." "How can you be so sure?" "Because being with you feels like breathing, like everything suddenly makes sense in a way it never has before." Victoria set down her food, her hands shaking slightly. "I need to tell you something." Ryan's stomach dropped. "Okay." When I fired my chef last month, it wasn't because he made things too fancy. It was because he asked why I always set 3 places at the table when I lived alone. She took a shaky breath. I'd been doing it for months, setting a place for you and Emma, even though you weren't coming to dinner, just in case, just hoping. Victoria, and the coffee every morning. I started doing that because I wanted you to know someone was thinking about you, that you mattered to someone beyond Emma. Tears were streaming down her face now. I've been half in love with you for almost a year, and I've been terrified you'd never see me as anything more than your landlord. Ryan pulled her into his arms, feeling her shake against him. I saw you. I've been seeing you. I was just too scared to do anything about it. Why? Because you're brilliant and beautiful and completely out of my league. Because I'm a single father who lives in your guest house and fixes your plumbing. Because I couldn't imagine someone like you would want someone like me. Someone like you is exactly what I want. You're real, Ryan. You're kind and steady, and you don't want me for my money or my connections or what I can do for you. You just want me. Yeah, I do. They stayed on the living room floor until nearly midnight, talking and kissing and figuring out what this thing between them actually looked like. Victoria admitted she had no idea how to be someone's girlfriend. Ryan admitted he had no idea how to date a billionaire. They agreed to take things slowly, to communicate even when it was hard, to give each other grace when old patterns emerged. I should probably go, Ryan said eventually, even though everything in him wanted to stay. Or you could not go. His heart stuttered. Victoria, I'm not asking for anything more than sleeping in the same bed. She looked vulnerable in a way he'd never seen before. I don't want to be alone tonight. Is that okay? Yeah, that's okay. They fell asleep in Victoria's enormous bed, tangled together in a way that was more comfort than passion. Ryan woke up at 3 a.m. to find her crying silently in the dark. Hey, he whispered, pulling her closer. What's wrong? Nothing. Everything. I don't know. Victoria's voice was thick with tears. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and you'll be gone, that this is too good to be real. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? I promise. She fell back asleep eventually, her breathing evening out against his chest. Ryan lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling of a bedroom that probably cost more than he'd make in 5 years, holding a woman who could buy anything in the world but couldn't quite believe someone would choose to stay. When morning came, Victoria's alarm went off at 5:30. She reached to silence it, then froze when she realized Ryan was still there. You stayed, she whispered. I told you I would. I know, I didn't quite believe it. Believe it. Ryan kissed her forehead. Now go take your calls, I'll make coffee. You don't have to, I want to. He found his way to her kitchen, figured out the complicated Italian espresso machine, and made 2 cups exactly how they both liked them. When Victoria emerged from her bedroom 40 minutes later, showered and dressed for work, she found him sitting at the island scrolling through his phone. You're still here, she said again, like she couldn't quite process it. Where else would I be? I don't know. I thought maybe you'd panic and leave while I was in the shower. Do I seem like the panicking type? No, but I am, so I'm projecting. Ryan handed her a coffee cup. Drink this. You have calls in 10 minutes. Victoria took the cup, her fingers brushing his. Thank you. For coffee? For staying, for not running, for... Her voice cracked. For being exactly who you are. Right back at you. They stood in her kitchen drinking coffee and being domestic, and Ryan thought that maybe this was what happiness actually looked like. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And real was more than enough. The next 3 weeks were an exercise in learning how to share a life that neither of them had ever really shared before. Ryan still lived in the guest house officially, but most nights he ended up in Victoria's bed, the two of them talking until exhaustion finally won. Emma thought it was hilarious that her father still pretended to maintain separate residences. Dad, your toothbrush is in her bathroom. Your work boots are by her back door. Last night you fell asleep on her couch during a documentary about sustainable architecture. You basically live there. I'm being respectful of boundaries, Ryan said, pouring coffee in the guest house kitchen that he barely used anymore. Whose boundaries? Because Victoria literally gave you a drawer in her dresser last week. That was for practical purposes, so I wouldn't have to keep going back and forth for clean clothes. Emma gave him a look that suggested his logic was deeply flawed. You're ridiculous, both of you. Just admit you're living together and stop pretending. It's only been 3 weeks, Em. So? You've known each other for 2 years. The 3 weeks is just when you stopped being idiots about it. Ryan couldn't really argue with that. The shift from landlord-tenant to whatever they were now had been surprisingly natural once they'd stopped fighting it. Victoria still worked absurd hours, but now Ryan brought her dinner at the office or convinced her to come home before midnight. He still fixed things around the estate, but now Victoria paid him with kisses and terrible attempts at cooking that they both pretended were edible. The problem started small. Little things that Ryan told himself didn't matter. Victoria canceling dinner plans at the last minute because a conference call ran long. Again. Victoria spacing on Emma's school concert because she'd been in back-to-back meetings all day. Victoria promising to take a Saturday off and then spending the entire day on her laptop handling a crisis in Singapore. Ryan understood. He did. She ran a billion-dollar company. Emergencies happened. But understanding didn't make it less frustrating when Emma asked why Victoria hadn't come to her concert, and Ryan had to explain that work had gotten in the way. She texted me an apology, Emma said, staring at her phone. Said she'd make it up to me. She will. She's just busy right now. She's always busy, Dad. That's kind of the problem. Ryan wanted to argue, but Emma was right. Victoria was always busy, and Ryan was starting to feel like he was dating her schedule instead of actually dating her. It came to a head on a Tuesday night when Ryan walked into the main house to find Victoria's suitcase sitting by the front door. The same suitcase that had been there the night she'd confessed her feelings, the night everything had changed. Now it was back, packed and ready, and Ryan felt something cold settle in his stomach. Going somewhere? He asked, keeping his voice carefully neutral. Victoria emerged from the hallway, phone pressed to her ear, and held up one finger in a wait gesture. Ryan waited, watching her pace while she talked to someone in what sounded like Mandarin. Her conversation went on for 5 minutes, then 10, and Ryan felt his patience starting to fray. Finally, she ended the call. Sorry, that was the Beijing office. The permits came through faster than expected, and now everyone's scrambling to... Where are you going? Victoria blinked at him. What? The suitcase. Where are you going? Oh, Singapore. Just for a few days. The situation there is still a mess, and I need to meet with the partners face to face. She checked her watch. My flight leaves in 3 hours. I meant to tell you earlier, but the day got away from me. When were you planning to mention this? I'm mentioning it now. 3 hours before you leave. Ryan, I literally just found out this morning that I needed to go. It's not like I've been hiding it from you. You've been home for 20 minutes. You could have led with, hey, I'm leaving the country tonight. Victoria's expression shifted into something defensive. I've been on the phone handling the logistics. I can't just drop everything the second I walk through the door. I'm not asking you to drop everything. I'm asking you to tell me when you're leaving. I'm telling you now. What's the problem? Ryan felt his frustration boiling over. The problem is that this is the 3rd time this month you've canceled plans because of work. The problem is that you missed Emma's concert. The problem is that I feel like I'm dating a ghost who occasionally appears between conference calls. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time we spent a full day together without you checking your phone every 5 minutes? I run a company, Ryan. I can't just ignore my phone. I'm not asking you to ignore it. I'm asking you to be present when you're with me, with us. Victoria's jaw tightened. I am present. You're physically here. That's not the same thing. So what do you want me to do? Quit my job? Stop caring about my career? Become some domestic housewife who waits around for you to come home from work? That's not what I said. It's what you're implying, that my work matters less than your need for attention. Ryan felt like he'd been slapped. Is that really what you think this is about? My need for attention? What else would it be about? You knew what my life was like when we started this. You knew I had a demanding career, and now you're acting surprised that I actually have to do my job. I'm not surprised you have to do your job. I'm frustrated that your job seems to be the only thing that matters to you. That's not true. Then prove it. Stay home. Handle the Singapore situation remotely. Show me that we actually matter to you. Victoria's expression went cold in a way Ryan had never seen directed at him before. You're asking me to choose between my company and you. I'm asking you to find some balance. No, you're asking me to prioritize your feelings over my responsibilities. And that's exactly what he did. Her voice was shaking now. My ex. He started with little requests, skip one meeting, delegate this project. Eventually it was just constant pressure to be less, to want less, to sacrifice everything I'd built for a relationship that fell apart anyway. I'm not him. Aren't you? Because this feels exactly the same. Victoria, I'm not asking you to sacrifice anything. I'm asking you to be in this relationship as much as I am. And I am. But apparently that's not enough for you. Apparently I need to abandon my company mid-crisis to prove I care. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying, Ryan? Because it sounds like you want me to choose my career or you. And if that's the choice you're forcing, then you already know what I'm going to pick. The words hung between them like a death sentence. Ryan felt his chest constrict, all the air leaving the room in one terrible rush. So that's it? He said quietly. Work wins. Always. That's not fair. You just told me you'd choose your career over us. How is pointing that out not fair? Victoria's eyes were bright with unshed tears. You don't understand. This company is everything I built from nothing. It's the only thing that's never betrayed me, never left me, never asked me to be less than I am. I can't lose it. Not even for you. I'm not asking you to lose it. I'm asking you to make room for us in your life. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, you're asking me to prove my love by sacrificing the things that matter to me. That's not love, Ryan. That's control. I'm not trying to control you, Then what do you call this? You standing here demanding I cancel a business trip to prove I care. That's manipulation, even if you don't see it that way. Ryan felt something break inside his chest. You really think that's what this is? Me trying to manipulate you? I don't know what to think anymore. I just know I can't breathe right now and I can't have this conversation, and I need to get to the airport. Victoria grabbed her suitcase, her movements sharp and desperate. I'll be back Friday. We can talk then. Victoria, wait. I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't. She was gone before Ryan could find the words to stop her, the door closing with a soft click that sounded like an ending. Ryan stood alone in her entryway, surrounded by the evidence of the life they'd been building together. His jacket on her coat rack, his coffee mug in her sink, a photo of him and Emma that Victoria had framed and put on her bookshelf like they were something worth keeping. His phone buzzed. Emma. Where are you? Dinner's getting cold. Ryan stared at the message, then at the closed door, and realized he had no idea what to do next. He went back to the guest house feeling like he'd just survived a car crash. Emma took one look at his face and set down her fork. What happened? Victoria left for Singapore. We had a fight. How bad? Bad enough that I don't know if we're still together when she gets back. Emma was quiet for a long moment. What did you fight about? Her work. Me feeling like she's never actually present. Her thinking I'm trying to control her like her ex did. Are you? Ryan's head snapped up. What? No. Emma, I would never. I'm not saying you are. I'm asking if you can see why she might think that. Emma's voice was gentle but firm. Dad, you've been getting more and more frustrated every time she has to work late or cancel plans. And I get it. I'm frustrated too. But she's been clear from the beginning about what her life is like. I know that. Do you? Because it kind of seems like you thought she'd change once you got together, that she'd magically become less busy or more available. But that's not fair to her. I'm not asking her to change. I'm asking her to make us a priority. And she probably thinks she is. She's just showing it differently than you want her to. Emma pushed her food around her plate. She bought me a graphing calculator last week. Not because I asked for it, but because she remembered me complaining about having to share one in math class. She pays attention, Dad. She cares. She's just not good at showing it in the normal ways. That doesn't make it okay to miss your concert. No, it doesn't. And I was upset about that. But she apologized, and she's trying. That's more than Mom ever did. The comparison hit Ryan harder than it should have. This isn't about your mother. Isn't it? You're so scared of being abandoned again that you're looking for proof Victoria's going to leave. And the more you push, the more you're making it a self-fulfilling prophecy. When did you get so wise about this stuff? I told you. Young adult novels. But Emma's smile was sad. Dad, I love you, and I really like Victoria. But you both need to figure out how to meet in the middle, because right now you're pulling in opposite directions. Ryan spent the next 3 days in a fog. He went to work, came home, helped Emma with homework, and tried not to check his phone every 5 minutes for a message from Victoria that never came. She'd texted once to let him know she'd arrived safely in Singapore, a brief impersonal message that could have been sent to anyone. Marcus noticed, of course. "You look like hell." "Thanks." "Trouble in paradise?" "Something like that." "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." "Tough." "We're talking about it." Marcus leaned against the wall of the half-finished building they were wiring. "What happened?" Ryan explained the fight, the suitcase, the things Victoria had said about choosing her career. Marcus listened without interrupting, which was unusual enough that Ryan knew he was taking this seriously. "So let me get this straight," Marcus said when Ryan finished. "You asked her to skip a business trip to prove she cared about you." "I didn't ask her to skip it. I asked her to find balance." Right before she left for the airport. "The timing wasn't great." "Ryan, the timing was terrible. You basically gave her an ultimatum. Choose work or choose us. What did you think she was going to do?" "I don't know." "Not leave? She runs a billion-dollar company. She can't just not leave when there's a crisis." Marcus shook his head. "Look, I get it. You want to feel like you matter, but you picked a hell of a time to have that conversation. So I'm supposed to just accept that her work always comes first? No. But you're supposed to understand that sometimes it has to. That's what you signed up for when you started dating a CEO." Marcus's voice softened. "I know you're scared. I know your ex walking out messed you up, but Victoria's not Sarah. She's not leaving because you're not enough. She's leaving because her company needs her. What if she never stops leaving? Then you figure out if you can live with that. But making her feel guilty for doing her job isn't going to make her stay. It's just going to make her resent you." Ryan knew Marcus was right, hated that he was right, but knowing it didn't make the tight feeling in his chest any better. Victoria called on Thursday night. Ryan almost didn't answer, terrified of what she might say. But he picked up on the fourth ring. "Hi." Her voice was quiet, uncertain. "Hi. I'm coming home tomorrow. My flight lands at 4. "Okay. Can we talk when I get back?" "Yeah, we should." There was a pause, heavy with everything neither of them was saying. Finally, Victoria said, "I'm sorry for what I said. About you being like him. That wasn't fair. I'm sorry, too, for the timing, for making you feel like you had to choose. We're both disasters at this, aren't we?" "Completely." "Ryan?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Are we okay?" Ryan closed his eyes, pressing the phone harder against his ear. "I don't know. I hope so." "Me too." She hung up before he could say anything else, and Ryan sat in the darkness of the guest house, wondering if hope was enough. Friday afternoon came too slowly and too fast. Ryan left work early, ignoring Marcus's knowing look. Emma was at a friend's house, which was probably for the best. Whatever conversation he and Victoria needed to have, they needed to have it alone. He found her in the main house kitchen, standing by the island with a cup of coffee and exhaustion written across every line of her body. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Hi," she said, and her voice was so fragile it hurt to hear. "Hi." They stared at each other across the kitchen, the space between them feeling like miles instead of feet. "I've been thinking," Victoria started, her hands tightening around the coffee cup, "about what you said. About balance, and you're right. I've been so focused on work that I haven't been present with you and Emma. I've been treating this relationship like another item on my schedule instead of something that actually requires time and attention." "Victoria, let me finish. Please." She took a shaky breath. "But I've also been thinking about what I said, about my company being the only thing that's never betrayed me. And that's not fair to you. You've been nothing but honest and steady, and I keep waiting for you to leave like everyone else has. So I push you away first by hiding behind work." "I'm not going to leave." "You say that, but everyone says that. And then they realize how hard I am to love, and they go anyway." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for making you feel like you don't matter. You matter so much it terrifies me." Ryan crossed the kitchen, pulling her into his arms. She collapsed against him, crying in that desperate way that suggested she'd been holding it together by sheer force of will. "I'm sorry too," he said against her hair, "for the ultimatum, for making you choose. That wasn't fair." I don't want to choose. I want both. I want my company and I want you and Emma, and I don't know how to make that work without failing at everything. Then we figure it out together. That's what partners do. Victoria pulled back enough to look at him, mascara smudged and eyes red. I don't know how to be a partner. I've spent so long being alone that I don't know how to let someone in without feeling like I'm losing myself. Then we learn together. Because I don't know how to date a billionaire CEO, and you don't know how to date a single father who lives in your guest house. We're both making this up as we go. What if I keep messing up? Then you keep messing up, and I'll mess up too. And we'll figure it out. Ryan cupped her face, making her look at him. But I need you to hear something, okay? Okay. I'm not asking you to be less. I'm not asking you to quit your job or stop caring about your career. I'm asking you to let me be part of your life in a real way. That means telling me when you're leaving the country before you're 3 hours from the airport. That means sometimes choosing to come home instead of working until midnight. That means showing up for the people who love you, not because you have to, but because you want to. I do want to. Then show me. Not with grand gestures or expensive gifts. Just be present. When you're with us, actually be with us. Victoria nodded, her tears slowing. What if I'm bad at it? Then you'll be bad at it, and we'll deal with it. But you have to try, Victoria. I can't do this alone. You're not alone. You're not. I'm learning how to do this, and I keep getting it wrong. So we both keep learning. Ryan pressed his forehead to hers. Can we agree on something? What? No more running. When things get hard, when we fight, when you panic, we stay and work through it. No suitcases by the door. No disappearing for days without really talking. We stay. That's terrifying. I know, but that's the deal. You asked me to promise I wouldn't let you run. I'm asking you to promise the same thing. Victoria's hands came up to frame his face, her touch gentle. I promise. No more running. Even when it gets hard? Especially when it gets hard. They kissed then, soft and desperate, and tasting like salt and coffee. When they broke apart, Victoria rested her head against Ryan's chest and said, I missed you so much. I missed you too. The Singapore trip was awful. The partners are still being difficult. The timeline is completely unrealistic, and I spent the entire week wishing you were there to tell me it was going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You don't even know what the problems are. Doesn't matter. You're brilliant and stubborn, and you'll figure it out. You always do. Victoria laughed, the sound watery but genuine. How are you so confident in me? Because I've watched you solve impossible problems for 2 years. This is just another one. This one involves zoning regulations in 3 languages and partners who keep changing their requirements. Okay, that does sound awful. It's a nightmare. I'm seriously considering just scrapping the whole project and eating the losses. Ryan pulled back enough to look at her. You don't mean that. I might mean it, a little bit. Victoria, you've been working on this project for over a year. You're not going to scrap it because it got difficult. What if I can't fix it? Then you can't fix it and you move on to the next thing. But you're not a quitter. Don't start now. She studied his face for a long moment. How do you do that? Do what? Make everything feel manageable, like the world isn't ending even when it feels like it is. That's not me. That's you being exhausted and overwhelmed. Get some sleep, eat something that isn't airplane food, and it'll look different in the morning. Will you stay? Tonight? Yeah, I'll stay. They ordered pizza because neither of them had the energy to cook, and ate it sitting on Victoria's living room floor like they had that first dinner together. Emma came home around 8, took one look at them, and said, You guys worked it out? We're working on it, Victoria said. Good, because Dad's been moping around for days, and it was getting really annoying. I was not moping. You were absolutely moping. Emma grabbed a slice of pizza. So are you guys officially together now, or are we still pretending Dad doesn't basically live here? Ryan and Victoria exchanged a look. We're officially together, Victoria said carefully. If that's okay with you. Obviously it's okay with me. I've been shipping you guys for a year. Emma took a bite of pizza. Does this mean you're moving into the main house, Dad? Because the guest house is getting kind of lonely. We haven't really talked about that yet, Em. Well, you should talk about it, because it's weird having you split between 2 houses. She looked at Victoria. No offense. None taken. You make a good point. After Emma went to bed, Ryan and Victoria lay tangled together in her enormous bed, exhaustion finally catching up with both of them. "She's right, you know," Victoria said quietly, "about you basically living here. Your toothbrush is in my bathroom. Your clothes are in my dresser. You haven't slept at the guest house in 2 weeks. Is that a problem?" "No, but maybe we should make it official. Move your stuff over. Stop pretending we're maintaining separate residences." Ryan's chest tightened. "That's a big step. We've already taken the step. We're just calling it what it is now." Victoria turned to face him. "Unless you don't want to?" "I want to. What if it's too fast?" "Ryan, we've known each other for 2 years. We've been dating for a month. We already spend every night together. How is making it official too fast?" "When you put it like that, it sounds reasonable." "That's because it is reasonable." But her smile was soft. "We don't have to decide tonight. Just think about it." "Okay." "Okay." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other in the darkness. And when Ryan woke up the next morning, Victoria was already gone. For a terrifying second, he thought maybe she'd run after all. Maybe the whole conversation last night had been too much. Then he smelled coffee. He found her in the kitchen, hair wet from a shower, wearing yoga pants and one of his old construction company t-shirts that she must have stolen from the guest house. "Good morning," she said, pouring him a cup. "I have calls in 20 minutes, but I thought we could have breakfast first." "You're making breakfast?" "I ordered bagels. That's safer than attempting to cook." Ryan laughed, pulling her into a kiss. "Good call." They ate breakfast together. Victoria's laptop closed on the counter. She kept glancing at it, clearly anxious about the work she wasn't doing, but she stayed present. Talked about Emma's upcoming science fair. Asked about Ryan's current project. Made plans for dinner that night. Small things. Normal things. But they mattered. After Victoria's calls started, Ryan went back to the guest house and started packing. Not everything. He still wasn't sure they were ready for him to fully move in. But enough. Clothes, toiletries, the photo of Emma he kept on his nightstand. Emma found him halfway through. "So, you're doing it?" "Doing what?" "Moving in with Victoria." "I'm moving some stuff over. That's not the same as moving in." "Dad, you're packing your life into boxes. That's literally the definition of moving in." But she was smiling. "I think it's good. You guys are good together when you're not being idiots about it." "We're trying to be less idiotic." "I can tell. She's been happier this week, even with the Singapore disaster." "How do you know about the Singapore disaster?" "She mentioned it when she helped me with my homework last night. Said the project was making her want to throw her laptop through a window." Emma grabbed one of the boxes. "I'll help you move this stuff. On one condition." "What condition?" "You have to promise to actually be happy. Like genuinely happy. Not just going through the motions because you think you should." Ryan set down the shirt he'd been folding. "Em, where's this coming from?" I remember when Mom left. How you pretended everything was fine for my sake, but I could tell you were dying inside. And I don't want that again. I want you to be with Victoria because she makes you happy, not because you're scared of being alone. She does make me happy, even when we're fighting about work-life balance and having minor relationship crises. Good. That's all I wanted to hear. Emma picked up the box. Now come on, let's get you moved before Victoria finishes her calls and thinks you changed your mind. They spent the afternoon transferring Ryan's belongings from the guest house to the main house. It wasn't much, 2 years of living there, and he'd somehow accumulated less than he'd owned in his last apartment. But it was enough to make Victoria's bedroom feel like their bedroom, her closet feel like their closet. When Victoria emerged from her office around 4, she found Ryan hanging shirts in the walk-in closet beside her perfectly organized designer wardrobe. "You're moving in," she said, and her voice was full of wonder. "Yeah, if that's still okay." "It's more than okay." She crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist from behind. "It's perfect. My stuff is going to mess up your organizational system. I'll survive. And Emma's going to be over here constantly now. The guest house is going to feel lonely without us." "Good. I want her here constantly. I want both of you here." Ryan turned in her arms, studying her face. "You mean that?" "I mean it. This house has been empty for too long. It's time it actually felt like a home. And maybe it was that simple. Maybe home wasn't about perfect timing or having everything figured out. Maybe it was just about choosing to stay, even when things got hard. Maybe it was about terrible eggs and late-night pasta deliveries and learning how to be together despite not knowing how. Ryan kissed her, soft and certain, and thought that, yeah, this felt like home. 3 months after Ryan officially moved into the main house, Victoria came home from work and immediately knew something was wrong. Not crisis-level wrong, but the kind of wrong that lived in the small details. Emma's backpack abandoned in the entryway instead of hung up properly. The kitchen lights all blazing when Ryan usually kept them dim in the evenings, and the unmistakable sound of raised voices coming from upstairs. She found them in Emma's new bedroom, the one they'd spent 2 weeks renovating together, painting the walls a soft gray that Emma had picked out herself. Now Ryan stood in the doorway while Emma sat on her bed, arms crossed and face set in that particular 13-year-old expression that meant she dug her heels in about something. "What's going on?" Victoria asked carefully. Ryan turned, and the exhaustion on his face made her chest tighten. "Emma got suspended from school. 3 days." "What? Why?" "Why don't you ask her since she won't tell me?" Victoria looked at Emma, who was staring determinedly at her hands. "Em? It's not a big deal." "Getting suspended is absolutely a big deal," Ryan said, his voice tight with frustration. "And you still haven't explained what happened." "I told you. Some kids were being jerks and I handled it." "Handled it how? Because according to the principal, you shoved another student hard enough that she fell and hit her head on a locker." Victoria's eyes widened. "Emma, she deserved it." "That's not how the world works," Ryan said. "You can't just assault people because they make you angry." "I didn't assault anyone. I defended myself." "The principal said you initiated physical contact. The principal wasn't there. She doesn't know what actually happened." "Then explain it to me. Help me understand." But Emma just shook her head, jaw set. "I already told the principal. I'm not saying it again." Ryan looked like he was about to say something else, something sharp that he'd probably regret, so Victoria stepped in. "Why don't I talk to Emma alone for a minute?" Ryan's expression said he didn't think that was a good idea, but he was also clearly at the end of his rope. "Fine, I'll be downstairs. But this conversation isn't over, Em." After he left, Victoria sat down on the edge of Emma's bed. The girl didn't look at her, still staring at her hands like they held answers to questions she didn't want to ask. "Want to tell me what really happened?" Victoria asked quietly. "Not particularly." "Okay, want to sit here in silence while I pretend I know what I'm doing?" That got a small smile. "You're supposed to be on his side." "I'm not on anyone's side, I'm just here." Victoria picked at the edge of Emma's bedspread. "But for what it's worth, your dad's not angry because you got suspended. He's scared." "Of what?" "That you're hurting and he doesn't know how to help. That he's failing you somehow." Victoria paused. "That you're turning into someone who solves problems with violence instead of words." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "They said terrible things about him, about you, about us." Understanding dawned slowly. "What kind of things?" "That Dad's a gold digger, that he's only with you for your money, that you must be desperate to date some poor construction worker who lives in your house because he can't afford his own place." Emma's voice broke. "They called you pathetic. Called him a leech, and I couldn't let them keep saying it." Victoria felt something hot and protective flare in her chest. "So you shoved the girl who was talking?" She wouldn't shut up. She kept going on and on about how everyone at school was laughing at us, how it was so obvious what was happening, and I told her to stop, and she just laughed and said more stuff, and I lost it. "Oh, Em, I know I shouldn't have. I know violence isn't the answer, and I should have walked away or told a teacher or whatever. But she was saying things about my dad, and nobody gets to do that. Nobody." Victoria pulled Emma into a hug, feeling the girl shake against her. "I'm not going to tell you what you did was right, because it wasn't. But I understand why you did it. Dad's so disappointed in me." "He's not disappointed. He's scared and frustrated because he loves you and doesn't know how to protect you from people being cruel." "How do you deal with it? People saying terrible things about you?" Victoria thought about the years of gossip, the articles questioning her business decisions, the whispers about her love life and her ambition, and her apparent inability to maintain relationships. "Honestly, most of the time I just ignore it. People are going to have opinions regardless of what you do. You can't control that." But what if they're saying things about people you love? Then it's harder, a lot harder. Victoria pulled back to look at Emma. But you still can't fix it with violence. That just gives them ammunition to say worse things. So what am I supposed to do? Just let them talk? You're supposed to remember that their opinions don't define your reality. Your dad loves me. I love him. We're building a life together. What some kids at school think about that doesn't matter. It matters to me. I know, and that's because you have a good heart and you want to protect the people you love. But Em, your dad doesn't need protecting from gossip, and neither do I. Emma wiped at her eyes. I messed up, didn't I? Yeah, you did, and you're going to have to face the consequences of that. Victoria squeezed her shoulder. But messing up doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you human. Is Dad going to ground me forever? Probably not forever, but I'd prepare for a pretty serious punishment. Great. Emma slumped back against her pillows. Can you tell him I'm sorry, that I know I screwed up? You should tell him that yourself. He's downstairs probably wearing a hole in the kitchen floor from pacing. Will you come with me? Victoria stood, offering her hand. Yeah, I'll come with you. They found Ryan exactly where Victoria had predicted, pacing the kitchen with a cup of coffee he wasn't drinking. He looked up when they entered, his expression carefully neutral. Dad, I'm sorry, Emma said before he could speak. I know I messed up. I know I shouldn't have shoved Madison. She was saying really terrible things about you and Victoria, and I got so angry I couldn't think straight. Ryan's expression softened slightly. What kind of things? Emma repeated what she'd told Victoria, her voice getting smaller with each word. By the end, Ryan looked like he wanted to find this Madison kid himself and have some words. Em, people are always going to have opinions about my relationship with Victoria, about me living here, about the money difference, about all of it. You can't fight everyone who says something stupid. I know. I hate that they're talking about you like that, like you're using her or something. Anyone with eyes can see how much you love each other. Victoria felt her chest tighten at the simple certainty in Emma's voice. Ryan caught her eye, something warm passing between them. I appreciate you wanting to defend us, Ryan said carefully. But defending us isn't your job. Your job is to be a kid, go to school, and not assault your classmates. I know. I'm really sorry. Sorry doesn't undo what you did. You're suspended for 3 days, which means you're grounded for those 3 days. No phone, no TV, no hanging out with friends. You'll spend the time doing homework and helping around the house. Emma nodded miserably. Okay. And you're going to write an apology to Madison, whether she deserved what she said or not. You don't get to hurt people physically just because they hurt you with words. Even if they're being horrible, even then. That's what being a good person means, Em. You take the high road even when it's hard. After Emma retreated back to her room, Ryan collapsed onto one of the kitchen stools and dropped his head into his hands. I'm failing at this. Victoria moved behind him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. You're not failing. You're parenting a teenager. There's a difference. She got suspended because kids are gossiping about us. That feels like failing. Kids would find something to gossip about regardless. Teenagers are cruel. That's not on you. Isn't it? If I wasn't living here, if we weren't together, she wouldn't be dealing with this. Victoria stiffened. Are you saying you regret this? Us? What? No. Ryan turned to face her. I'm saying I hate that Emma's getting hurt because of choices I made. Choices we made. And Em's not hurt because we're together. She's hurt because some kid at school is a bully who learned to be cruel from her parents. Victoria cupped his face. Don't do this. Don't make our relationship the problem when the actual problem is that people are judgmental and mean. What if she's right? What if people are laughing at us? Then they're laughing. So what? So it bothers me that people think I'm using you. Why? You know the truth. I know the truth. That's all that matters. Ryan pulled away, moving to the window that overlooked the estate grounds. Is it? Because I've been thinking about it a lot lately. About how this looks from the outside. Broke single father moves into billionaire's mansion, suddenly has access to money and resources he could never afford on his own. It's not a great look. I don't care how it looks. Well, I do. I care that people think I'm with you for your money. I care that Emma's getting bullied because her dad is living some fairy tale that doesn't make sense in the real world. Victoria felt something cold settle in her stomach. What are you saying, Ryan? I'm saying maybe we should slow down. Maybe I should move back to the guest house, create some distance, make it less obvious that what? That we're together? That we're building a life? Victoria's voice was rising now. You want to hide us because some kids at Emma's school have opinions? I want to protect my daughter from gossip and cruelty. By what? Proving them right? By acting like there's something wrong with us being together? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Because it sounds like you're looking for an excuse to run. Ryan turned to face her, and the exhaustion in his expression was deeper than simple tiredness. I'm saying I don't know how to do this. How to be with someone who has so much when I have so little. How to look at myself in the mirror and not wonder if everyone's right about me. You think I'm with you for your money? Victoria asked, and her voice was dangerously quiet. No. But I think other people think that. And I'm tired of defending myself to people who've already made up their minds. So your solution is to prove them right by leaving? I'm not leaving. I need to figure out how to be okay with this. With us. We've been together for months, Ryan. You moved in. We've built a life. And now you're having second thoughts because some teenager was mean to Emma? It's not about the teenager. It's about everything. The comments at work when guys find out where I live, the looks people give me when I'm out with you, the constant feeling that I don't belong in your world. Victoria felt tears burning behind her eyes. You belong with me. That's all that matters. Does it? Because from where I'm standing, it feels like I'm constantly proving that I'm not here for your money, that I actually love you, that this is real. And I'm exhausted, Victoria. I'm so tired of defending us. Then stop defending us. Stop caring what people think. I can't just turn that off. Why not? I did. Because you're you. You've spent your whole life not caring about other people's opinions. I haven't. And I can't just wake up one day and decide that public perception doesn't matter. They stared at each other across the kitchen, the space between them feeling impossible to cross. Victoria thought about the past few months, about learning to be part of a family, about letting herself be vulnerable in ways she'd never allowed before. And now Ryan was pulling away because he couldn't handle what other people thought. You're doing it again, she said quietly. Doing what? Looking for reasons why this won't work. Building walls before I can hurt you. Victoria's voice cracked. I told you I was terrified you'd leave once you realized how complicated my life is. But you promised you wouldn't run. You promised, Ryan. I'm not running. Then what do you call this? You want to move back to the guest house, create distance, hide what we have. That's running. That's you being too scared to stay. I'm not scared. I'm practical. There's a difference. No, you're terrified. You're terrified that everyone's right, that you're not good enough for me, that this is all some elaborate mistake. And instead of trusting what we have, you're listening to voices that don't matter. Ryan's jaw tightened. They matter when they're hurting my daughter. Your daughter is hurt because kids are cruel, not because we're together. And moving back to the guest house isn't going to change that. It's just going to teach her that love isn't worth fighting for when things get hard. That's not fair. None of this is fair. But that's life, Ryan. People are going to judge us. They're going to have opinions about our relationship, our lives, everything. You can either let that destroy what we have, or you can decide that we're worth more than their gossip. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was tired. What if I can't do that? What if I can't just stop caring? Then we're in trouble. Because I need you to be as sure about this as I am. And right now, you don't seem sure at all. The words hung between them like a challenge. Victoria watched Ryan's face, searching for any sign that he understood what she was really asking, that she needed him to choose her, to choose them, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. I need some air, Ryan said finally, moving toward the door. Ryan, I'm not leaving. I need to think. He was gone before Victoria could respond, the door closing with a soft click that felt far too familiar. She stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of the life they'd built together, and wondered if she'd just made the same mistake all over again, loving someone who wasn't ready to love her back with the same intensity. Emma appeared in the doorway, her face worried. I heard yelling. We had a disagreement. About me? About what happened at school? Not exactly. Victoria sank onto one of the stools. More about what other people think of us. The gold digger stuff? Among other things? Emma came and sat beside her. My dad's not a gold digger. I know that. And he loves you, like really loves you. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Then why is he pulling away? Because he's scared. And when my dad gets scared, he gets practical. Emma picked at the edge of the counter. After my mom left, he spent like a year just working and taking care of me. He wouldn't date, wouldn't go out, wouldn't do anything that might make him vulnerable again. I think part of him still believes that loving people means getting hurt. I'm not going to hurt him. I know, but he doesn't. Not completely. Emma looked at Victoria with eyes that were far too old for 13. You have to prove it to him. Not with words, with staying, with not giving up when he pushes you away. What if I can't reach him? You will. You already have. He's just having a moment where he's forgotten that. Emma stood. I'm going to go finish my homework, but Victoria? Yeah? Don't let him be stupid about this. You guys are good together, like really good. Don't let fear ruin that. After Emma left, Victoria sat alone in the kitchen and thought about fear, about how it could make you sabotage the best things in your life because you were so convinced they couldn't be real. She'd done it herself enough times to recognize the pattern. The difference was she'd already worked through that fear. She'd already chosen to trust Ryan, to let herself be vulnerable, to believe that maybe this time would be different. Now she needed Ryan to make the same choice. She found him an hour later sitting on the porch of the guest house, staring out at the dark estate grounds. He looked up when she approached but didn't say anything. Victoria sat down beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. Emma told me I shouldn't let you be stupid about this. She said that? In slightly different words, but yeah, that was the general message. Ryan laughed, the sound tired but genuine. She's too smart for her own good. She gets that from you. Victoria took his hand, relieved when he didn't pull away. Talk to me. Really talk to me. What's going on in your head? Ryan was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. I grew up poor, Victoria, like really poor. The kind of poor where you wear the same clothes every day because that's all you have. Where dinner is whatever you can scrounge together from the food bank. Where money isn't just tight, it's non-existent. I didn't know that. I don't talk about it much. Worked my way through it, built a career, gave Emma a better life than I had. But that feeling never really goes away. The fear that it could all disappear, that I could end up back where I started. He squeezed her hand. And then I met you. This brilliant, beautiful woman who has more money than I could make in 10 lifetimes. And part of me keeps waiting for the other shoe to drop. What other shoe? The one where you realize you could do so much better than a construction worker who grew up in poverty. The one where the novelty wears off and you wonder what you were thinking. Ryan's voice cracked. The one where you leave, and I'm left trying to explain to Emma why another woman we loved decided we weren't worth staying for. Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. Ryan, look at me. He turned, and the vulnerability in his expression broke her heart. I'm not going anywhere, she said fiercely. I don't care where you came from, or how much money you have, or what anyone thinks about us being together. I love you. Not because you fix things around my house, or because you're convenient, or because I'm settling. I love you because you're kind and real, and you see me as a person instead of a bank account. I know. Logically, I know that. But you don't believe it, not completely. I'm trying to. I swear I'm trying. Then try harder. Because I can't do this alone, Ryan. I need you to meet me halfway. I need you to trust that this is real, even when other people question it. Ryan pulled her into his arms, holding her tight enough that she could feel his heart racing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for pulling away. For making you feel like you have to prove yourself. You shouldn't have to do that. And you shouldn't have to defend loving me. We're both enough exactly as we are. They sat like that for a long time, wrapped around each other in the darkness. Finally, Ryan said, I don't want to move back to the guest house. Good, because I'd just follow you here and make you come home anyway. Home. Ryan tested the word. Yeah, that's what it is, isn't it? It is for me, has been since you moved in. Even with all my construction dust and terrible organizational skills, especially with those things. Victoria pulled back enough to look at him. We're going to have more moments like this. More times when fear tries to convince us that we're making a mistake. But we have to choose each other anyway. That's what love is. choosing each other even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Ryan kissed her, soft and certain, and Victoria felt something settle in her chest. They weren't perfect. They were still learning how to be together, still navigating the complicated reality of their different worlds. But they were trying, and maybe that was enough. The next morning, Ryan woke Emma up early. "Get dressed. We're going somewhere." "Dad, I'm grounded, remember? This is part of your punishment. Trust me." They drove to Emma's school, Victoria following in her own car. Emma looked between them with growing concern. "What are we doing here?" "You're going to talk to Madison," Ryan said, "face to face. You're going to apologize for shoving her, and you're going to stand up for yourself with words instead of violence." "Dad, she's going to say terrible things." "Probably. And you're going to handle it with grace and maturity, because that's who you are." They found Madison in the parking lot before school started, flanked by two friends who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. The girl's eyes widened when she saw them approaching. "Emma," Ryan said quietly, "your turn." Emma took a breath, stepping forward. "Madison, I wanted to apologize for shoving you. I shouldn't have done that, and I'm sorry you got hurt." Madison's expression was wary. "Okay, but I also want you to know that the things you said about my dad and Victoria were wrong. My dad's not using her. He loves her, and she loves him. What you think about that doesn't change the truth." "I was just saying what everyone's thinking. Then everyone's wrong." Emma's voice was steady. "My dad is the best person I know. He works hard, he takes care of me, and he makes Victoria happy. That's what matters. Not gossip, not rumors, just the truth." Madison looked uncomfortable now, her friends shifting beside her. "I didn't mean to—" "Yeah, you did. But I'm done caring what you mean. I know who my dad is, I know who Victoria is, and I know they're good together." Emma turned to walk away, then paused. "Oh, and for the record, Victoria's not pathetic. She's brilliant and kind, and she chose my dad because she actually sees people for who they are instead of what they have. You should try it sometime." They walked back to the car in silence. When they were safely inside, Emma let out a shaky breath. "That was terrifying." "You did great," Victoria said from the driver's seat. "Really great. She looked so surprised when I stood up to her without yelling." "That's because you were being a bigger person than she expected," Ryan said. "I'm proud of you, Em." "Even though I'm still grounded?" "Especially because you're still grounded. Actions have consequences, but you handled that consequence with maturity." Emma smiled, small but genuine. "Can we get breakfast? I'm starving." They went to a diner near the house, the three of them crammed into a booth while they ate pancakes and talked about everything except the drama of the past 24 hours. Victoria watched Ryan with Emma, the easy way they communicated, the obvious love between them. This was her family now, imperfect and complicated and absolutely worth fighting for. A week later, Victoria came home to find Ryan in the estate workshop, building something that looked suspiciously like a bookshelf. "What's this?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Emma needs more storage space. Her room's getting crowded with all the books she keeps buying." "You could just buy her a bookshelf." "Where's the fun in that?" Ryan set down his saw, pulling off his safety glasses. "Besides, this way I can make it exactly the right size for her space." Victoria moved closer, examining his work. "You're really good at this." "At building furniture?" "At taking care of people. At seeing what they need before they know they need it." Ryan pulled her into his arms, sawdust and all. "I learned from the best. You've been doing that for me and Emma since before we even got together. That's different." "How?" "I don't know. It just is." Victoria rested her head against his chest. "I've been thinking." "About what?" "About the estate. About all this space I never use." She gestured vaguely at the workshop, the grounds beyond. "What if we turned some of it into something useful? Like affordable housing units or community workshops or— Victoria, that's a huge project. I know. But you were right before about me working too much because I don't know what else to do with myself. What if instead of just building things to build them, I built things that actually helped people?" Ryan pulled back to look at her. "You're serious about this?" "I am. I've been talking to some developers, running numbers. We could convert the North Wing into apartments, keep them affordable for families who need housing, use the workshop space for community programs." Her words were coming faster now, excited. Emma mentioned wanting to do a coding camp this summer, but the only ones available are too expensive. What if we hosted one here? Free for kids who couldn't otherwise afford it. Wow, that's actually brilliant. You think so? I think it's exactly the kind of thing you should be doing with your resources. Making a real difference instead of just accumulating more. Victoria felt something warm bloom in her chest. I'd need help. Someone who actually knows construction and project management, and I'm in. I haven't even told you the details yet. Don't need to. If you're doing this, I'm helping. Ryan kissed her forehead. We're a team, remember? Even when I spring massive renovation projects on you without warning, especially then. They spent the next hour sketching out ideas, Ryan pointing out structural considerations while Victoria calculated costs and timelines. Emma found them eventually, took one look at their plans and said, "This is so cool. Can I help?" "Absolutely," Victoria said. "We'll need someone to help with the community outreach. Figure out what programs people actually want." "I can do that. I can make surveys, talk to people at school." Emma's eyes were bright with excitement. "This is going to be amazing." That night, after Emma went to bed, Ryan found Victoria on the back porch with a glass of wine and a stack of papers. The same porch where she'd confessed her feelings months ago, where everything had started. "Still working?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Just reviewing some preliminary designs. I want to make sure we're thinking about this right." Ryan took the papers from her hands, setting them aside. "You can look at those tomorrow." "But no buts. You've been working all day. Now you're going to sit here with me and just exist for a minute." Victoria laughed, leaning into him. "Is this your way of telling me I'm obsessing?" "This is my way of reminding you that you don't have to have everything figured out tonight." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the lights of Portland twinkle in the distance. After a while, Victoria said, "I never thought I could have this." "Have what?" "This. All of it. A partner who actually sees me. A kid who feels like mine even though she's not. A purpose that matters more than just making money." Her voice got quiet. "A home." Ryan pulled her closer. "You have it. We all do." "I keep waiting for it to fall apart." "It's not going to fall apart. How can you be so sure?" "Because we're choosing it every day. Even when it's hard, even when we fight, even when fear tries to convince us we're making a mistake, we're choosing this." Ryan pressed a kiss to her temple. "And I'm going to keep choosing it, Victoria, for as long as you'll have me." "That might be a really long time." "Good. I'm counting on it." 3 months later, they broke ground on the renovation project. Emma had organized a community meeting that drew over 100 people, all interested in the affordable housing and program spaces. Victoria had never seen her estate feel so alive, so full of possibility. Ryan oversaw the construction, working alongside his regular crew plus volunteers from the neighborhood. Victoria handled the business side, securing funding and permits and managing the partnerships with local nonprofits. Emma ran the social media accounts, documenting the progress and building excitement. They worked together like they'd been doing it for years, falling into an easy rhythm that felt inevitable. And slowly, the empty spaces of Victoria's estate transformed into something meaningful. The North Wing became 12 affordable apartments for families. The workshop became a community makerspace. The old greenhouse became a teaching garden where kids could learn about sustainable growing. And the mansion itself, the place that had been so lonely for so long, became a home in the truest sense. Not because of the expensive furniture or the perfect architecture, but because it was filled with people who chose each other every single day. On the night before the official opening, Victoria found Ryan on the same porch where everything had started. He looked tired but happy, the kind of exhaustion that came from meaningful work. "You did it," she said, settling beside him. "We did it. All of us. I couldn't have done this without you." "Yeah, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." Victoria took his hand, lacing their fingers together. "Do you remember what I said that night, when I told you she didn't love you like I did? Every word. I meant it. I still mean it." Ryan turned to face her, his expression soft in the porch lights. "I know. And I'm sorry it took me so long to really believe it, to trust that this was real. Do you trust it now?" "Yeah, I do." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small box that made Victoria's heart stop. "Which is why I wanted to ask you something. Ryan, Let me get this out before I lose my nerve. He opened the box, revealing a simple ring that was nothing like the enormous diamonds Victoria's social circle would expect. I know we've only been together for less than a year. I know this is fast, but I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you. Every day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Victoria's eyes were already streaming tears. Yes. I haven't actually asked yet. I don't care. The answer is yes. Ryan laughed, pulling her into a kiss. Victoria Hale, will you marry me? Yes. Absolutely yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and Victoria thought about how far they'd both come. From two people too scared to admit their feelings, to this, to choosing each other, to building something real. Emma appeared in the doorway, phone in hand and grinning like she'd won the lottery. Finally! I've been waiting for you to propose for like 3 months. You knew? Ryan asked. Dad, you've been carrying that ring around for weeks. You're not subtle. She came and hugged them both. I'm so happy for you guys, both of you. They stood together on the porch, the three of them, and Victoria realized this was what home actually meant. Not the mansion or the money or the estate grounds. Just this. People who chose each other, people who stayed. The official opening drew a crowd that filled every corner of the estate. Local families touring the apartments, kids exploring the makerspace, community members asking about programs and opportunities. Victoria stood with Ryan and Emma, watching people discover the spaces they'd created, and felt something settle in her chest that she'd been searching for her entire life. Peace. A reporter from the local paper approached, notebook in hand. Ms. Hale, can I ask what inspired this project? Victoria looked at Ryan, at Emma, at the life they'd built together. I spent a lot of years thinking success meant building bigger, making more, achieving more. But real success isn't about what you accumulate. It's about what you create that matters. It's about the people you choose to share your life with. It's about building something that lasts beyond you. And what does last? The reporter asked. Victoria smiled, taking Ryan's hand. Love, family, community, the things that make a house feel like home. That night, after everyone had gone and the estate was quiet again, the three of them sat in the kitchen eating takeout pizza like they had so many times before. But everything felt different now, bigger, more real. So, Emma said, reaching for another slice, when's the wedding? Victoria and Ryan exchanged a look. They hadn't even started planning, hadn't thought past the proposal itself. We'll figure it out, Ryan said. As long as it's before I leave for college, Emma said. I want to be there. You're 13. College is years away. Exactly. So you have plenty of time to plan. But she was smiling, that gap-toothed grin that still made her look like the little girl she'd been when Ryan first moved into the guest house. Victoria watched them banter back and forth, father and daughter, and thought about how much had changed in such a short time, how a chance rental ad had turned into this, how two people afraid of being hurt had somehow found the courage to love anyway. Later, lying in bed with Ryan's arms around her, Victoria whispered, I can't believe this is real. Better start believing it. You're stuck with me now. Good. I don't want to be unstuck. Ryan laughed, pulling her closer. That's not a word. It is now. They fell asleep like that, tangled together in the darkness, and for the first time in her life, Victoria wasn't afraid of tomorrow. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Because that's what home meant. Not a place, not a thing. But people who chose to stay, even when staying was hard. People who loved you not despite your flaws, but because of them. People who saw you completely and decided you were worth keeping. And Victoria Hale, who'd spent so many years alone in her empty mansion, had finally found exactly that. She'd found her home. The mansion still stood on its 12 acres, beautiful and expensive and impressive. But now when the lights glowed warm in the evening, they weren't just a signal that someone was there. They were a welcome, a reminder that empty spaces can be filled, that lonely hearts can learn to open, that sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never saw coming. Ryan Carter had moved into that guest house 2 years ago just looking for affordable housing and stability for his daughter. He'd found so much more than that. He'd found a partner who challenged him, a home that felt right, and the courage to believe he deserved both. And Emma, who'd spent years watching her father survive instead of love, finally got to see him happy. Actually happy. The kind of happy that came from being loved exactly as you were. They were an unlikely family, built from broken pieces and second chances. But they worked. Not because everything was perfect or easy, but because when things got hard, they chose to stay. They chose to work through it. They chose each other. Every single time. And in the end, that was all love ever really was. A choice you made, over and over again, to stay. To fight. To build something worth keeping. They'd chosen well. And the mansion that had once echoed with loneliness now rang with laughter and life and the beautiful chaos of people learning how to be a family. It had become at last exactly what it was always meant to be. Home.